Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Jacket Jockeys with Justin.
And me
Yay! One last
one
time.
last time. I couldn't let us down.
With me, the
Finale.
bit of the
Me.
week. What will it be this week? It's usually with me, but sometimes it's something else.
What if it was this week it's with the bad one?
Yikes. Who didn't appear in this week's episode, I believe,
I believe that's right.
which is a bit surprising.
It was a bit surprising. Not a lot of tie in this episode, actually.
Well, yeah, I think that's sort of true. Um, yeah, I think because of where the story's going, it
Yeah,
focuses on some other characters more
indeed.
so.
Well, there are a lot of characters.
There are
And
indeed.
Ty's been getting a lot of tie time in previous
Yeah,
episodes.
time.
Hi, yeah, Misa. Yeah, finale. And what's it called?
The big finale. Oh, we're here to talk about season 2, episode 9 of Showtime's award-winning prestige drama series Yellowjackets, entitled Storytelling.
Ooh, storytelling. That's
Storytelling.
an interesting
That's the name. Yeah.
storytelling. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, bit by bit, as we run through the episode, maybe I will develop a theory about what that means.
So, I mean, I'll tell you what I think it
Do
means.
it.
I have two things. So, the most obvious thing that it's referencing is there's a certain point in the episode where Van's telling a story. Um, and it's implied that she has like recounted the movie plots in the past, but
Yes.
this time she tells him a story
She
about the
tells the story of the
wilderness.
wilderness. Yeah.
And I feel like it's about how the story they tell themselves about what happened
Yeah.
determines like how they act and the way they uh the way they uh you know uh give meaning to things.
Indeed. Yeah.
Which is an overall theme of the show, but yeah, I feel like that's part of what it's about.
Yeah.
You can say that about a lot of the plots. Like the thing that happens with Natalie in the last episode, like that's a story they told themselves about what it meant.
Yeah. A
For
lot of the season has been around that theme.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
the story that they tell themselves about what happened in the wilderness determines how they feel about what is happening right now and
yeah,
what they think they ought to do about it.
yeah.
Yep.
Whereas like Natalie didn't really buy into that story, you know, even though she is thrust into a leadership position because of that specific interpretation of what happened,
Yeah.
which she seems pleased by. So it's all very confusing.
Yeah, this episode
Um,
is a big turning point. I'm gonna say that I really don't think that they had this in mind when they filmed the pilot.
I'm sure that they didn't have this in mind when they filmed the pilot. Yeah, I
Yeah,
would.
they're just gonna play, in the same way they play like hot potato with the necklace.
Yeah,
They're gonna be doing that with who's the antler queen.
yeah, yeah. Though
Um
I feel like we know who the Antler Queen is now, but I guess if they really want, they can pull another
hey, who's like
switch.
a couple seasons.
There is some implication at the end that like Shauna's upset about this happening, and she thinks it
Mhm.
should have been her. So anyway, like
Yeah, and then we know it isn't Misty because in the pilot we
yeah,
see
it's
her,
definitively
but
not Misty. Yeah,
she takes an interesting role in this episode of kind of
yeah. She's almost like the little finger
yeah.
of the group, never leading but always manipulating from behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like secretly wanting things to go a certain way and trying to achieve that goal, and sort of being crypto in charge, but not actually officially, because they won't really follow Misty. Everyone is always a little freaked out by Misty.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though, like, the longer they're out there, the less that seems valid. Because she was like real
Yeah.
weird before the crash compared to the rest of them, but now I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if I went out and did, Shauna, if I did what Shauna did in this episode and I came back in and they're like, yeah, Nat's our leader,
Hmm.
I'd be like, fuck you.
Yeah. Well,
Butcher your own
I
children.
think that's her reaction pretty
Yeah. No,
much.
I just the episode, there's so much going on in this episode, and that is such a horrendous scene. Processing
Yeah.
the Javi.
Yeah.
Um and you're just sort of dwelling in the dread and disgust of that. But yeah, it is pretty I mean, not that you necessarily want to be in charge of a crew like that. I mean, what would you even do with that power? But they are also teenagers. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
everything is about acceptance and rejection.
And it's tied into the status that she had relative to Jackie. So
Yeah.
it's a very small point that they suddenly make at the end, which I think is kind of strange.
Right. So you're
Um,
talking about what we see her writing in her diary.
yeah,
And that is the first time we talked on an
yeah,
earlier
we did.
podcast about how they just kind of stopped showing
I think
her
that's why they put that in. They
diaries.
wanted to
Yeah.
like reestablish, like, yeah, yeah, she's writing in the diary.
Yeah.
We just haven't been like, I feel like that's what it kind of implies that like, you know, she has been, and here we'll show it in this pivotal moment. It also gives them a chance to do an internal monologue that we wouldn't necessarily know of it. Like, if
Right.
they
She
didn't
doesn't
show
have anybody
this,
to confide that in
I wouldn't be
with.
thinking like, oh, Shauna thinks she should be the lead. Like that would not be.
Right.
It wouldn't be obvious to me at all without that scene. That
Yeah.
that's what we're supposed to think. So
Yeah, there's a real shuffling in the power dynamic in this
yeah,
episode. Um I mean in the past, but there's also some weird stuff in the present. And Van, what is your game, Van?
Van
Um
is really. I mean, it's almost like because of the cancer. Like she's like, I got nothing to lose. Like fuck it. I don't know. Like that's all I
yeah,
got.
it's not just about you though, Van. And
Yeah.
I
Well.
but it makes me wonder if she does, because she seems earlier on, she seemed, and like in the last episode and in the beginning of this episode, she seems not to be buying Lottie's line. But then
Yeah. Then it seems like she
she
does buy it when they're actually out there.
yeah.
And she's the one who calls off the team. So
Right, right. So, I mean, I can understand if it's okay. So she calls off the team because she thinks that, as she says, Lottie is like this because of us. It's if the claim is it's not fair to send her off to be institutionalized, we owe it to her to try to figure this out together because they will just lock her up and subject her to electroshock or whatever. I don't know if even in Switzerland they still do electroshock, but
well, they were doing it in the late
90s, yeah.
90s.
Well, I mean, women got the right to vote in parts of Switzerland in the early 90s, so who knows?
Sick burn,
Yeah,
sick
stick around
burn.
on Switzerland.
In a couple of
Yeah,
cantons.
yeah. Anyway, point being,
And
if
they loved it. No,
they
I'm
loved
joking.
it, it's so much easier to just trust your husband or your
Yeah,
father to make
voting
the decisions
sucks. I
for
mean,
you.
does anybody
Oh, I
really
gotta
like
read the
voting?
ballots, and I
I
gotta go to the thing and stand in the booth. The voting booths in Switzerland are probably really sick.
yeah,
They're probably like really fancy.
yeah.
Anyway, um,
They serve you a croissant and
you
a
get a little espresso
cafe.
while you're waiting. You can, yeah, it's very slick.
One of those little cookies.
It's basically like the Zurich airport, but it's a booth. And there are no planes, and instead you vote there. So yeah, my point was, Van, if her behavior would make sense if coping with it together didn't involve one of them certainly dying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as if she's got some plan and we see some piece of it fail. She doesn't seem to have a backup plan.
No. No.
So, we see Shauna trying to buy time in that last scene, or
Yeah.
it's not the last scene, but in that late scene, when they're all supposed to be drawing,
Yeah.
let's shuffle
It,
some
it's
more.
the end of the ritual.
Van's like, I think we've shuffled enough.
Yeah.
I was like, what is your game,
Yeah. Yeah.
Van?
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
maybe Van was gonna like have a card up her sleeve, literally,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
literal card up her sleeve because they'd shown the burning of those other queens, but like
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just okay, so we got to kill somebody.
It yeah, it came across to me
You
like
just gotta kill
she was
somebody.
going in with Lottie, like, let's
Yeah,
do this, let's sacrifice someone.
yeah,
I don't understand why that makes any sense, but
yeah.
that's how it looks. Like
Would you say
there
that
was
she was throwing her Lottie in? Lottie?
hey
I'm sorry.
her Lottie lot.
It's just not an episode of Jacket Jockeys without a Lottie puns.
Yeah. No, it there's no indication that she was pulling back. There's no I just it seems like circumstances intervene and that's why they don't kill. It's basically like what happens with Natalie in the past. Like other things intervene and then it's like, oh well, I guess Natalie was the sacrifice this time. Like it comes back around, you
Right, the
know,
wilderness chose.
weird
What are you talking
circumstances cause her to
about?
die this time and yeah, like
I
it's
don't
also
think
an
we have the same
accident.
definition of choosing. But it is that thing.
Storytelling.
It's yeah, storytelling. But it's also, we've talked in previous episodes about a sort of creation of a new cosmology and the Lindelof effect of, was this actually the wilderness choosing? I mean, did the wilderness break the ice in that spot? And did the wilderness enable the circumstances for Javi to drown? And did the wilderness, push Misty's hand just so that she misses Lisa and hits Nat? You can believe what you want to believe.
Yeah, I mean, in general I have to say that I feel that this episode and really in general like the I'm thinking through like what we've seen. I feel like the latter half of the season like has been less um uh leaning into the supernatural hints like less. It
Yeah.
feels like the
Yeah, no birds fell out of the
yeah,
sky
the
in
proceedings
this
got more
episode.
grounded in the later part of the season. Yeah, that episode
Yeah.
3, that was like that was the weirdest
Yeah,
episode of the
we got like the
season.
blood running down the walls, but no one else sees it.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Right, Mari's thing. See, that's the
or
thing.
so
I
do they
don't really count.
collectively hallucinate the
Yeah, like
birds?
Nugget and I don't
Yeah,
really count. And then
those are just
there's
hallucinations.
exactly, yeah, it just comes across like their hallucination and Lottie's like fake therapy session, like
Yeah.
but yeah, like the thing I have in mind is like, you know, and we did see that in the last episode, but like Ty's mirror reflection, like looking, changing from the reflection and looking at her, and then like obviously the birds, but also like the episode before with Jackie, that weird scene with Travis and Natalie getting it on, and then like Lottie appearing in these weird poses, and then the shot in the woods overhead of the snow coming down on Jackie's burning body, and like all that stuff really seemed like it was really a little more strongly hinting at like a supernatural force, whereas here, sure, you can believe it is but I feel like the filmmaking doesn't really lean into that. It more so implies like they're putting that meaning on it if they want, but like we see the rationale for everything that
Yeah.
happens. It's like pretty transparent why the fire in the cabin starts, for example. Like I was thinking, I don't know if you remember this 2000, well, I know it exists and I know you've seen it. Anyway, this 2010 horror comedy film entitled Jennifer's Body.
Yes, I have seen
You
it.
familiar
Yeah.
with that one?
Yeah.
Which actually has a few things in common with the show, but
Yeah, definitely. And it's I'm guessing there's a lot of overlap in the viewers.
that yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's definitely like a Jackie Shauna thing going on with the central characters in that story. Among other things. Like cannibalism. Anyway, although is it cannibalism if you're a demon now? Anyway, these are questions. But the point I wanted to make is that at a certain point, there's this band that they go to see at like the local roadhouse, whatever, and that band like does this ritual sacrifice. Like this is what leads to the plot of the movie. So they're like Satanists or something. It's vague, but that's the idea. Um, and when they go to see the band, like the whole roadhouse catches fire, and and like a ton of people that they know die in the fire. It's a whole thing, right? And it's never indicated what started the fire. you know it's like vague, and I was reading about it, and they were like, you know we didn't really want there to be a specific reason for the fire. It was more so a kind of indication that there was evil in the
Uh-huh.
area. It was like evil's here, and it was more of a foreboding thing that like suddenly the place caught on fire.
Yeah.
And that does, and of course, I mean, that movie leaves no room. There is 100% supernatural stuff happening in that movie.
Right.
you can, there's no way you watch that without, I mean,
Right.
literally there's like flying and like all kinds of levitation powers.
Maybe it was like
Anyway.
a magnetic field kind of an issue. Yeah, definitely. And I think I can only imagine how frustrating it might be to write texts that are deliberately ambiguous and have the internet and others just kind of insist on pinning down a fixed meaning.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's fine. I'm sure
People
that,
on the internet love explanations.
well, people in general love I mean, we are psychologically hardwired, cognitively hardwired to want explanations, but that's what makes mysteries so intriguing, the way that they itch that center in our brains. Um,
Yeah, there's a whole genre on YouTube of like the ending of blah 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 explained,
right,
and it's like you
right.
watch it. Like I've watched some of those, and sometimes it's like that's just like
But is it
your
like your interpretation, man?
interpretation.
Yeah.
like
Uh,
like that's not definitive. I don't know. I mean,
right.
there's like a 4-hour video about Twin Peaks where this guy claims that it's a commentary on modern television, which I think is the stupidest theory I've ever heard
Oh,
of
what if
Twin
the person is
Peaks.
listening?
Sorry. Sorry
Right.
for listening. I hate your theory.
Yeah, so
Sorry.
I want to differentiate, and you don't have to sign on to what I'm about to say, but I want to differentiate between the tendency to, come up with interpretations based on these mysterious things, because you sort of get a kick out of imagining, well, what if this is a metaphor for blank? Like, what in the text supports the idea that this is a metaphor for blank? Or, ooh, what if this is suggesting blank, versus saying, I have figured it out, I've
Yeah, yeah,
cracked the
yeah.
code, and this is
Yeah.
my thesis, congratulate me.
Yeah.
Like, I guess it's the intellectual humility piece of it that is, because I'm going to say things, and then listeners or whoever will be like, well, that's actually not very well grounded in, or you're missing this one piece. And that's fine. That's good. Because I'm not putting a stake in the ground and saying this is the explanation.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think there's a lot of joy. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't think that there was joy to be had, and kind of, taking these mysteries seriously and speculating around them. But it's just when people, I think, take themselves too seriously
Yeah.
about it,
I
or
found the
think that
one
they are the
true thing.
authoritative voice.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Um,
a very common posture to take. Anyway, my point was just that like that fire in the movie is, it's ambiguous, and there is a hint that maybe some supernatural force like started it. At least like it's reasonable to think that in the context of the movie. Whereas like here with the cabin fire, we get like, imagine a different way they play it where we never see Coach Ben in this episode at all, right? They just leave
yeah,
his ass in the cave,
which I thought that they
which
were
is what
going
you
to
thought.
do.
And that, of
I was
course, if
so surprised they open on
I mean,
him.
if we knew that this is where they were going, that it's more obvious that we have to see him.
Yeah.
But you know, like they could have done that, right? And just had the
Mhm.
cabin burn and we don't know, right?
Yeah. And
And we could speculate, but it would still be more ambiguous. The way they show it, it's
yeah.
like pretty obvious what happened,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So what we miss. So yeah, the viewer sees Coach Ben matches and a pile of wood, and I didn't. When they show that shot, I did not think, oh, he's going to burn the cabin down. But as soon as you realize there's a fire in the cabin, that is what I thought. Um, but the Yellow Jackets don't see him out there, and so they're if there was not going to be a season break before the next episode, I would say in the next episode they have to give us some kind of indication of what the Yellow Jackets think about this fire, because they seem to attach a lot of meaning to the things that happen, and I would think they might take this fire as a signal that the wilderness might be unhappy with them.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know that that really
yeah.
supports. I mean, it's just interesting, and also with that scene when back in the past when Lottie says, I thought it wanted what was best for us, now I'm not so sure.
Mm-hmm.
um
Yeah.
but we're gonna have to wait like a year before we get a follow-up, and in
Yep.
that time they could decide they want to tell us whatever they want coming next, so anyhow, I think that they ought to imbue that event with meaning. And I also think that they ought to be asking, where the fuck is Coach Ben?
I agree. I mean, especially Natalie.
Well, Natalie, no, at least of all Natalie. That Natalie knows where he is. I mean, she doesn't know where he is, but she sort of knows where he is. But the rest of these people, it's like Coach Ben has been gone for like 24 hours.
Well, what I mean is, she's the one who should be suspicious that.
Yeah, she should be suspicious, but the rest of them already should be wondering where the fuck is Ben.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They don't seem to. They don't. No one even asks, which is
No one
very
even.
strange.
Um,
Yeah, they definitely. I don't know. Is it like they feel like they didn't have time to have people worrying about Ben in this episode? I don't know.
for sure, but no one, including the love of his life, Mostly Quigley. Uh, yeah. Anyway.
Asks about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Like, hey,
agree.
where's Coach Ben?
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, should we save a portion for Coach Ben? Where's Coach Ben? Somebody bring some food to Coach Ben.
yeah,
Wait, where's Coach Ben? Has
yeah,
anybody seen him in
yeah.
days?
Yeah, that does seem. Yeah, that does seem like an omission. It's true. It's true. Uh, but yeah,
But yeah,
um,
it's an interesting episode. Definitely really dark beginning. I guess also a dark ending, but it's very
yeah,
different.
yeah,
The stuff that happens in the present is never really as dark as the stuff happening in the past.
yeah, definitely. It's
Perhaps just by
very.
virtue of the fact that they're children in the past.
Yeah, and it's very extreme, the circumstances compared to the present. I mean, it's like I
Yeah,
said in the last episode when Lottie proposed this thing. It's like, yeah, we did that because we needed to eat something.
right.
Like that's literally the
No, but
thing.
it is hungry. It is hungry.
Oh God, that whole thing. Yeah, but I wanted to just briefly say about your point that like I do think it's interesting that they don't actually, at least not here. I mean, next season is up for grabs, but they don't really give a meaning to the cabin burning. It seems like they
Right,
just go outside and look and they're like, "Oh shit, the cabin burned."
right,
But they don't, it's not like anyone even offers like an interpretation of what that means, because I do agree that the obvious interpretation seems to be the wilderness is not happy with what we did.
right.
Maybe it should have been Natalie. I don't know, like where do you go from there? It doesn't, I don't know.
Yeah,
It just seems weird.
precisely.
Either that or where's Coach Ben? Something to indicate like they're at least like
Yeah, what could have possibly
concerned
started this
about
year?
why this happened,
Right.
It doesn't, it really, besides the immediate like we don't want to burn to death, it doesn't seem like they actually think about it much, at least here. I mean, they don't get a lot of time to because it is the end of the episode, but
Right, that's the thing. It's anticlimactic to have a scene where they're like, what could have caused this fire?
yeah, maybe
Did
that's
somebody blah
coming.
blah?
Maybe that's coming.
Um,
Or maybe they'll
Yeah.
just cut to 2 months later and
That's
never
the
talk about
thing.
it again.
Yeah, that is the thing about a season break. They can jump forward as
Yeah.
far as they
And
want.
that's what they did here too with this season, from Jackie's death to 2 months later. So it's possible that that's what they'll do again next season. I don't know. With the writer strike, I don't know how long it's going to be before we get another season. So we might have to exercise patience.
Yeah, well,
Anyway,
that's just I don't love Patience. I have
nor
no
do I.
idea what I'm going to watch that is going to come close to uh this.
There's not there's it's going to be
Yeah.
inferior
Yeah.
shows,
I'll
but
have to, maybe I watch like the worst show I can think of
yeah,
and just
let's
to
watch Ted
warn you.
Lasso.
Oh, I was gonna say you, the listener, can fill in that blank for yourself.
I just went there. No,
Um,
I've never seen it.
I've never,
If you're a
yeah,
Ted Lasso fan, no offense. I seriously have no idea
yeah,
what that show is like.
yeah. I've never seen it.
It involves soccer, I hear, so it has a little something in common with Yellowjackets.
Wow.
Um, yeah. So, are you ready to dive in for one more time?
Let's
This
do
crazy
it.
season two, 2023. All right. So, I just wanted to talk about this little point from the previously on that I think is kind of a curiosity from this episode. Because I think they rapid fire shortcut through certain things, and there's a few points that I feel are just a bit vague. So in the previously on, they show both Misty's call to Walter and they show him sending the message to the police. I have some information. The thing we saw, previously, where he's doing the puzzle and then he sees that Adam Martin's body was found. I really feel like, and he grabs the purple jacket. We see it in this episode. It's just a regular jacket. It's not like a trench coat, which is what I thought it was. I don't know. The collar looked like a
Can you
trench
call it
trench
a
coat to me.
regular jacket when when it looks like that?
Well, I just mean in style, cut.
It's a short coat.
Yeah,
Short,
yeah,
short
yeah.
coat.
It's not what I thought it was, which is a much more elaborate thing. It's
Hmm.
kind of a simple.
The purpleness
It
of
is
it all.
purple though, but I think he just wore purple because of the camp. Like I think
Yeah, yeah.
that's the
Which
only
somebody
reason.
didn't somebody didn't
Yeah,
briefly,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So bang on the banana, as
Definitely,
the British say.
definitely.
Um,
But yeah,
yeah. So finish your point about this.
I just feel like there's a missing. So my suspicion is that the reason why this plays weird is because they wanted to fake us out about Walter's true intentions, and they knew, what where they were going in this episode, that he was going to do this like elaborate plan basically to solve all the police problems, including
Yeah.
Jessica Roberts, which like no one was even asking questions about Jessica Roberts. It
We
seems like
were.
Kevin didn't even know who she was.
Yeah. Who?
Like
Yeah.
she wasn't on his radar at all. And so it's like, anyway, like he's got this whole plan, but it just feels a little incongruous that Misty calls him, but we see him just casually doing a puzzle until he sees Adam Martin's body has been discovered. I just think that's a bit odd. Like, why wouldn't he? I don't know. Like, there was something amiss there for me, in terms of like, he knows where Misty is right now.
Well, but he's the citizen detective, not you. So I think he's got this all figured out.
Well, he
I think
clearly
he knows the
does.
optimal way to hoodwink these detectives with a really elaborate and uh, murderous plan.
Definitely murderous,
He's
definitely elaborate.
we get a little more of a glimpse into what he's about. We've
Yeah,
been speculating wildly about what his motives are, and he puts a lot out there in this episode. Scary fucker, I would say,
yeah,
pretty devious. I mean, it helps our protagonists who we're highly invested in whom we are highly invested.
excellent.
um but yeah, it's a pretty like psychopath move. All in all, I would say, with no offense to any psychopaths who might be listening.
Yeah,
I think what I thought you were gonna say, I thought that the bone you were gonna pick was gonna be that they
I have
also
another thing to say about it later.
okay, well, do you wanna
Well, I was gonna save that for later, but no, go
oh
ahead.
well, I thought you were gonna pick the bone of they they play it like Kevin and what's his name are following uh uh Callie and
Callie and Jeff.
Jeff.
Yeah, yeah, they are. I mean, their
But
dialogue indicates that they are.
but Walter also had tipped them off about this place and was expecting them?
So yeah, this this is the other thing I was going to bring up later.
Okay.
So my interpretation, and it's vague because everything isn't stated out loud. So there's various versions that you can believe that are probably consistent with what's on screen. But my best attempt to read what happens is that Kevin and Matt never even knew about the message. In fact, the message didn't matter at all. He just lucked out that they showed up and he was able to incorporate them into a plan. He wanted to do this plan, and so he contacted the police, and they just happened to follow Jeff and Callie. And that's my interpretation. And they did not know that this message had been sent. That's because Kevin doesn't act like he has any idea who Walter is or what he's talking about. Like, there's no indication. He seems surprised, like
Oh,
that.
unless the message that he sent was it was not like you need to come to this camp. It was about the shady thing that he's trying to set up later that he mentions where it's like, oh, there were messages going back and forth between Kevin and these people. You know what I'm talking about? The
Yeah.
scene when he's so maybe that was the what the message was about.
Well, I think we saw the entire message.
No, no, no. Well, yeah, we saw I have some information about the case,
Yeah.
but we didn't see what information he sent. You know, or if there was any yeah, so
My
right.
assumption was
So
that he
my
didn't send any. He just said
right.
he had it.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. So it wasn't information about the camp. It was information about whatever he's holding on to,
yeah,
like to
yeah,
blackmail the
yeah, yeah.
police with.
To black out Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
So
Slash
yeah,
Matt.
so it works. It's just all roads leading to this, climactic event makes it a little bit messy. I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those like Lindelofish plots where the plans never go according to plan, and then you're left asking, what was the
What
plan?
was the plan?
It's like it's pretty unclear. Like, what was his plan if Kevin and Matt didn't follow Jeff and Callie there?
Right,
Like,
was he just gonna wait for as long as it took for police to show up?
yeah, yeah,
Would he eventually have led them to the camp when the police like got back to him the next morning or
yeah,
something?
yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's what I don't
yeah.
quite get. Because the way the story goes, there's no way for him to really explain what his original plan was.
Right.
He just improvises based on what he encounters
Maybe there'll
there.
be a scene
So,
in the premiere of the next season where he and Van exchange what their fucking plans.
yeah, 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 that's another one, definitely. But yeah, I think ultimately, uh, the reveal about Walter, I mean, what we see in this episode leaves little room for, I mean, he's clearly not like FBI or anything like that. I mean, we already knew that. He's not, I don't think he's really hiding a hidden agenda. If he's hiding anything, it's how crazy he is and how far he's willing to go. I mean, he's revealed to be very much in line with Misty, and like so in a way, he's Adam Martin. He was what he appeared to be. Like
Yeah.
he's a unhinged citizen detective who likes Misty. Like I think that's pretty much it. As far as I can tell.
Yeah.
And he goes like really far to help her out of being implicated in two murders. And helps her friends in the process as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think I think that's what we find out. And therefore, seems like he'll be back next season. And so will Van. And so, hey, not what I expected.
Not what I
I
expected.
thought things were coming to a head with
Yeah.
that and we kind of move on.
Speaking of
But
not what I expected, there's this shot in the later in the episode when they're all sitting in the cabin, this shot where it's Gen Melissa,
Mhm.
and Mari.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck
The
you.
red shirts of doom.
All yeah, Mari, yeah. Mari's not played a big role in the past couple episodes,
Yeah, no,
but
she did almost
it's
nothing in this
like
episode.
all y'all edible,
I mean,
highly
most of them.
edible, Ben highly edible, and here we
Animal.
have eh, yeah, anyway. It was very surprising. But anyway, they're messing with us. Just in the same way they
Yeah.
messed with us in season one, making us think that Adam was gonna turn out to be
Yep. Javi.
Javi.
Yeah, yeah.
They
Yeah,
obviously wanted us to think that.
definitely. Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah, yeah.
Listeners, I
Many did. You
did.
weren't the only one.
You know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I still think one of them should be Pit Girl, so I think that's still coming. I think they'll get their day. But because they have a 5-year plan, I mean, they gotta, you know,
Yeah,
I mean,
slow it
in a
down.
way, I feel like Pit Girl has to be a letdown at this point, because like we've already built up so much stuff and we can already connect the
Yeah,
dots.
go ahead and lower your expectations about that. It's just going to be something really
It's
straightforward.
almost like
Yeah.
they should just toss it off, like at the beginning of next
Or
season or
don't even
something.
tell us. Don't even ever show us.
Yeah.
Just one day in one some episode, 6 months later, and Melissa's just gone.
Right. We see her hat sitting on the fireplace.
No, we see the hat down in the pit.
Oh, okay, okay. I figured they do it like because Javi's little figurine gets put
Oh
there
yeah.
by Travis before they eat him. So
That's pretty fucking dark.
yeah, I just thought maybe they do something where they put a memento from each person they eat on the fireplace. But obviously that's not going to happen since the fireplace got burned.
Fireplace got burned.
So
Yeah, and I love that scene. I know I always like to talk about this shit out of order, and yeah, anyway. And then the scene comes and I'm like, well, I already said everything I had to say about that. But when they realize that the place is on fire, Shauna, she's obviously the first one to notice.
mhm.
She grabs all of her journals.
Yeah,
Which because we know
yeah.
that the journals
She
exist
has
in the future.
journals. Yeah.
And there's this like, grab everything you can, grab everything. It cracked me up. There's a shot of one of them grabbing a cast iron skillet. I'm
Hmm.
like, the cast iron skillet is like the one thing that is definitely gonna withstand a fire.
Oh yeah, that's
You really
true.
you can come back for that.
Yeah.
Go ahead and come back for maybe grab the blankets, the pillows, like come back
They did grab
for the skillet.
blankets for what
Yeah,
it's
I know they
worth.
did, but like you're lugging around a 5 pound cast iron skillet that is like impervious.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Anyway, like you literally cook it, you put it on a fire to cook.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't think about that, but yeah, practically that's yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Like we want to eat right away. We want to fucking cook out while we're watching the cabin burn. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense.
anyway,
All
sorry
right.
to derail us.
So you ready to kind of dive into the bit by bit stuff
Yeah,
here?
let's do it.
All right, so we open up on the past. I'm just going with past and present at this point because the cabin
You don't
burns in
know.
this episode.
In the
So
wilderness, we see.
I'm not
In the
going to be,
wilderness, we see.
and we've got a cave location too. So I'm not even going to bother with cabin or any. I'm just going to go with past and present, and the context should indicate what location. If it's not clear, I'll try to tell you. But
You can
anyway,
put it in the footnote.
yeah, I just thought it'd explain my format change here. Um, okay, so in the past we open on a zombie montage. I mean zombie the song for the record, not actual zombies.
It was only a matter
Um,
of time before we got some cranberries.
indeed. Yeah, it's kind of shocking that they hadn't done because that's such a seminal early 90s band. It seems strange that they hadn't appeared yet. But anyway, very dreary song about like the IRA bombing. So
Yeah,
anyway,
it hasn't been long enough that you can laugh and say the IRA bombing.
sorry, I just mean like it's the
It's heavy. You're not
it can
laughing because that is funny. You're laughing because it's so over the
yeah,
top.
well it convey it's like it's about a real world tragedy that's like very different from what's going on here, but is like it's sort of translated to this context. Anyway, that's the only reason.
Yeah.
Just because like you know
Conveys
what I
a sense
mean?
of
Like if they
devastation.
played a song about 9/11, like it'd be kind of weird. That's all I mean.
I'm making,
That's what I'm laughing about.
I'm making exactly the face you would expect.
Okay. Anyway, Nat and the others walk back to the cabin with Javi. We saw the beginning of this in the previous episode. Travis greets Nat first. Oh my God, you're still alive! Good job, Trav. You saved Natalie.
Oh,
Anyway, then the others appear. They have to come after, like, because this is like the lost rules of like they can't all arrive at the same time because we have to have the one greeting and then the other greeting.
yeah.
So anyway, Travis sees the
Yeah, if I were Natalie, I'd be like lingering in the back. Let them deliver the
yeah, yeah,
news.
yeah,
And delivering the news by carrying him like he's a suckling pig.
yeah,
It's so horrible.
yeah, yeah. It is. It is pretty horrifying. Um, Travis sees that it's Javi, and Nat says, "It happened so fast. The wilderness chose." Travis cries and cradles the body, and the rest of them go inside. When I saw this again, I was like, "Fuck you, Nat. What are you talking? You don't even believe that." Like she's covering for her own ass,
Yeah.
and to Travis,
To Travis.
it's like no wonder you got so much guilt. Like Jesus Christ, that's
Yeah.
such a shitty thing to throw. Like that was Van's bullshit, and now you're taking that
Yeah.
as like the story you're gonna tell Travis. You can't even admit I I let him die to save myself. You should never forgive me.
Right.
You know, like I feel like that's got to be what she's thinking, but that's not what she says. So it's just like, damn,
Well,
damn.
yeah.
And it goes back to like when Ben shows up later, it's like, you're good. You're not like the rest of them. And she's like, I'm worse.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, like I could not believe. It didn't even register. I was so in shock with what was happening the first time we watched it. I didn't even register, like, wow, she says this thing she doesn't even believe.
I'm sure she wants to believe it.
I'm sure she wants to, but like
I'm sure she wants him to believe it.
I'm sure she wants him to believe it too. But yeah, I just couldn't. Oh man, I just couldn't with this.
Yeah.
All right. So then we
Yeah, it's pretty horrible. It's well, yeah, go ahead.
no. Are you
It's setting us up for this theme around forgiveness and, like she has this meaningful thing with Lisa later on
yeah.
about, forgiveness.
Yeah.
It's a nice idea, but
Yeah. Yeah.
um and it doesn't really I mean, he falls into the ice fast, but the drowning takes a while.
Yeah.
We watched it.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean that part's just a lie. Misty pulled you away and said you have to let him die or it'll be you.
Yeah.
Like that's not.
And
It
we didn't
happens so
know, and I think
fast.
we said this last time, but we'll never know what would have happened if she'd tried harder
Yeah,
to fight against Misty.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
could have all ended up in the ice.
It's true. Like now, Javi is small enough that maybe she could have pulled him out. You know, unlike the moose, where like that was a hopeless thing. Which I now realize the moose thing was foreshadowing like this,
Yes.
you know, that or that from the previous episode.
Yeah.
But definitely if two of them helped, I think they could have pulled out Javi.
Yeah.
I mean they do pull out Javi. So 100%
Yeah,
they
they
could
pull
have
it
pulled
right,
out
exactly. They
Javi.
pull him out dead. They could have definitely pulled him out alive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like but it's like Natalie chooses to let him die so that they won't kill her. And so it happens so fast. It's just a lie. It's just a
Yeah.
straight like yes, he fell in fast, but like his process of dying was not fast and it was quite deliberate. And
Yeah.
anyway, I was just like, my God. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just I am struck by how this show, I mean, if you look at like seriously, all of the main characters on the show, like I'm accepting Jeff and like a few of these side characters who, you know, whatever their transgressions are, relatively minor, like have done really horrible things. It's like
Yeah.
we're really asked to sympathize with people who like do some really, really fucked up shit. In a way, like Lottie almost comes off as like one of the more innocent ones in this episode,
Certainly in this episode, yeah.
which
She's
is
like,
like
I didn't want those.
such a reversal from which I think is probably what they wanted from
Yeah.
like what I would have expected, you know. her
Yeah,
like
well,
ascending to the role of antler queen and like commanding her acolytes, and this cult seems like it implies she's resumed that role that she had in the past. I'm like, that's not true.
well, this what Natalie says is, another instance of storytelling.
Yeah,
But I
totally.
think this happens on TV shows pretty often where we see something, we have our own read on it, and then later the involved characters will tell a story about
Yeah.
what happened. And I am left wondering, does the writer want us to think that this person is lying to themselves, or is lying to, like, is Natalie
Hmm.
lying to herself, or is she
Yeah.
lying to Travis?
Yeah.
And
I
I
think
don't
that's
think it's,
ambiguous.
yeah, I think it's ambiguous
I can't really tell. It's
because people lie to themselves all the time. They tell
yeah.
themselves stories.
Hey, oh, themes are for eighth grade book reports and this
And
episode.
this and everything.
All right. You ready to continue? So you go to the present. We're back to the Circle of Doom. This is in the sharing shack, by the way. We're picking up from the previous
Circle of Doom and the
episode.
Sharing Shack.
Yeah, because they sit in a circle. Anyway,
You know that song from the 60s, Sugar Shack?
uh,
Come
vaguely.
on, baby, to that Sugar Shack.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I've heard
that's
it.
every time
Yeah,
you say Sharing Shack, I think of that song. Come on,
they should have like
baby,
done
to
a
that
high
Sharing Shack.
concept quasi '90s
They
re
should. I can't
cover
believe they didn't.
version, but called it the Sharing Shack.
Yeah, they should have
That would have
done.
been that would have been a scene from a different show. All right. So we go back. Lottie is about to just go for it and drink one of these
Yeah,
cups, one of which is
no
poisoned.
time like the present.
When Shauna stops her and says, "No, we should do it the old-fashioned way. The it is still in us." And Lottie hugs Shauna as Shauna exchanges glances with the others who join in on the deception. It's clear that Shauna is actually just stalling. Um, Misty proposes masks and weapons, and Nat sarcastically suggests cards, but they're really going to do the cards, and she's going to participate. So anyway, Lottie leaves. Oh, I'm sorry. Shauna tells Lottie to keep her acolytes out of this, and Lottie agrees to keep them away, and leaves to go do that. Um, Nat confronts Shauna about the plan. Misty suggests committing Lottie again. Nat doesn't think that's enough, and Van agrees. Van says, "We all went through it out there." I don't even know what that means, but she says that. We all went through it out there. Anyway, um, and Nat says, "Have you forgotten where that leads?" And then we go into credits from there. So,
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, a lot
so
of
a lot of stuff gets said that you want to follow up on.
yeah. There's a lot of yeah. It really is. So I get so Shauna here is stalling. She makes it clear later too. She's not buying into any of this shit. She doesn't want to do a ritual sacrifice. She's just like, what's wrong with you people? Please stop doing this.
Hmm.
Okay? I got it. I'm clear on where Shauna is. Misty, same thing, right? She's like, can we just get Lottie committed? Isn't that easier? Like, and it's like, so she's on board. She's gonna like go along with the deception, but ultimately it's like, we're just gonna buy time. We'll pretend to prepare for this, right? Misty, check. Okay. I think Ty's on the same page, though she doesn't speak up in this scene. But then Van, uh, you know, Van's weird. I don't, it's like here she's like, we all went through it out there. I don't know. It's like, does that mean we should go through it again? Like what? Like, I really didn't understand the implication of that, so because I had to write that down. But
Yes,
it ties into like my confusion of what Van's even thinking in this
yeah,
episode because it kind of starts here. And then Natalie also seems to be you know a lot on the same page as like the rest of them with like we should just stall. um have you forgotten where that leads? Is in like, we don't want to go down this road again. You know,
Yeah.
it seems like she's taking what Van's saying is, we all went through it out there. We shouldn't go through it again.
Yeah, it's really odd. Van's trajectory in these past few episodes, because she hasn't even been on the scene for that long,
Yeah.
but she's gone on quite a trajectory from I don't want to be a part of this. I'm not going to get out of the car.
Yeah, she didn't even want to like
Uh
go in the camp at all.
yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot. And she didn't even bother. See, this is why, like, the best I can do is say, like, because of the cancer, she's just like, fuck it, I got nothing to lose. Like, I really don't have any, because she doesn't participate in the treatments. All she does is get a bottle of tequila from her vehicle and drink it. Like, that's it. That's all she did at the camp. So it's like, it's not even like she had a transformative experience through the therapy.
Yeah,
It's
it's
almost
like,
like she bottoms out and is like, why not
there's
just
this
do a
like,
ritual sacrifice? I don't
yeah,
know.
there is something sort of nihilistic about it of, we went through this horrible thing together. We were all a part of this experience that shaped Lottie into the person she is now, with the problems that she is coping with right now. So we owe it to her not to just lock her up. Like, what's so I mean, this was the manifestation of our shared experience. um we can't just lock her away and pretend that
Yeah.
like, because then that could happen to us, kind of like, she
Hmm.
deserves her freedom. But it's just like, yes, but that means someone's going to die.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But if it's sort of like, well, we all die, a lot of people died back then, what's another person kind of attitude. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
intense.
Yeah, it's very strange. It's very strange. So anyway, I wanted to check in because I feel like when we're clear on where they stand now, it makes me question where we are later when the actual drawing is happening and stuff, because it gets a bit ambiguous, like what each of them are believing. I mean, like I said, I think Shauna stays on the same page for the rest of the episode. But the rest of them, I'm not so sure. Like, it gets weird at a certain point, and I'm like, wait, were they gonna actually kill Shauna? Like, it's weird. Like, they kind of act like they were, and there's really not a indication that they had reservations or a change of heart. It's really more like it's like the hobby thing, where like they're chasing Shauna and then someone else shows up and the wilderness chose. Like, it's
Yeah, I want to know what each of them thought. The ones who didn't know that, like, I think Misty, Shauna, Nat all think that at any moment a crew of people is going to show up
yeah,
and take her to a mental
yeah.
facility. But then the others, um, you know, did Van and or Ty think that um like the bad one was gonna show up and intervene,
Hmm.
or that the something supernatural was going to, like, what the fuck was Ty thinking?
Yeah.
Because if Van has given up and just is sort of like, well, let's just let this play out, however Lottie wants, like, let's just give it a hunt, whether she believes that there's an it or not, let's give Lottie a hunt.
Hmm.
um, what does Ty think? Does Ty realize that Van doesn't have a plan? Van plan?
Van without a plan.
Van without a plan?
Uh,
She's riding a van without a plan.
uh,
Or she's just
yeah.
like swept up in it. I
It
don't know.
comes across to me like she does it because it's what Van wants. Like, almost like the same reason
Yeah.
that she joined the circle with Lottie in the past. Or sorry, yeah, with Lottie in the past. Like, because Van wanted her to, and it ended up helping. And so maybe she thinks like, because she's been driven. I mean, none of this is on the page. Like, I have no idea because they don't really tell us what she's thinking. But because Van is the one who convinces her to call off the team from showing up, and because she's gone through all this like crazy shit with the bad one, like, doing this ritual sacrifice of the dog and then possibly causing the car wreck, getting Simone in the hospital, and that desperation leading her to Van and eventually to Lottie's camp. I mean, maybe she thinks like, I should go along with what Van wants here. Maybe something this over the top is like what's required to somehow exorcise the demon, or I don't know, maybe it'll help somehow. I mean, maybe she believes that. I don't know. That's my best attempt based on what we've seen earlier in the season, not based on what's in this episode. I mean, Van is the one who convinces her. That's all I know for sure. And so
Yeah.
that's what I got.
Yeah.
All right. So okay. So we go back to the past. Lottie sleeps in the attic. Misty comes up. Lottie asks why Travis was screaming. Misty tells her about eating Javi.
Because we're gonna eat Javi.
Yeah.
What a sentence.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, pretty clear. Yeah, so she tries to explain what happened in the last episode and says that they need Lottie. Lottie says she didn't want this, but Misty says, you started this. It's done and it will save us. So don't make people feel bad about it now. And I'm like, wow.
It's pretty intense.
Wow. So like this is where we see, and I think this tracks for me like pretty well. This is where we see Misty is not um you know she may act the part of being an acolyte for Lottie, for the group and to fit in, but she doesn't actually worship or believe in Lottie in particular, as we
Yeah,
can tell
she's no
here.
Mari.
She's just like, get in line, Lottie.
Yeah.
Don't fuck this up.
It's
all
really
right.
forceful.
Yeah, it's like it's interesting because you think the power dynamic is the other way around,
Yeah.
but you realize like actually like Misty's ordering Lottie around here, and I was really shocked by that. Like
Yeah.
I didn't I but then again, when I thought about the way they portrayed her in the past and in the present, it's like, oh no, it kind of makes sense. Like she's never really bought into any of that stuff, and that's why when Lottie talks about it later, I don't really believe it for Misty. I don't really believe that she mystifies, if you will, her impulses and so on. I feel like she takes them as pragmatic. She's just doing what she has to do for the situation, what seems like and sometimes that requires like going over the line, but she's willing to do that, and she has been from the beginning. I mean, she's the one who cut off Coach's leg, like that was before any of the cannibalism.
Yeah.
She'll do the hard thing that needs to be done, and I don't think she makes it about some mystical force that
No,
is
and I
controlling things.
didn't ever think that. I thought that it was about attaching herself to the person or the identity that was going to get her adoration. But
Yeah.
now I see also, yeah, this pragmatic, uh, you know, being the person who takes charge in the back, like you said, cutting off the leg.
Yeah. Yeah.
She doesn't cut off the leg to get their admiration. She does it because it's like taking charge of the situation.
Yeah.
She falls into that role many times throughout the show.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, she
but
she took charge of the disposal of Adam's body as well.
yeah. But this in this scene it plays differently because you're also the viewer is also not expecting Lottie to react the way that she did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like she has lost faith in the island. She said, I used to think it wanted what was in our best interest. Now I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like, well, why? What is it about what happened that shook your faith? The fact that it was Javi.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it's unclear. It's unclear. And how
and
does this relate to, Shauna beating her up, and, did that just give her time to think, or like they showed her like kind of writhing up there some, and like I'm just not really sure because she didn't talk much when she was up there.
yeah,
So I'm just like, I don't know.
much time is supposed to have passed in this season in the past?
Uh, I mean, I don't know for sure, but based on what we've seen, I would guess maybe 2 weeks at the most. Like I feel like they eat Jackie, right? That's in episode 2, And then, there's various events, but they feel like they're starving again by the
Yeah.
time they hunt for Natalie in the previous episode. Now, how long would it take them to feel like they're starving again? I mean, I feel like 2 weeks ish.
I don't know how Ben could possibly still be not starving to death.
Yeah, without eating like seemingly
Yeah.
anything for the entire
Yeah,
time.
what is he eating?
I mean, he might have had some of that belt soup, but
Nonetheless, that's not nutrient
it's
rich.
really not. It's really not. Yeah, I think that's a valid question. I mean, he seemed like he was on his last legs back in,
Yeah,
no pun
well,
intended, back in episode 3. So
yeah.
and now he's climbing in and out of caves and he's burning shit. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I think in a way,
I
like
don't show
his
him finding
things.
like a hibernating chipmunk down there and
No,
just like chomp chomp.
no. And how did Javi even catch all those animals? Anyway, we can
Yeah,
talk about that
where's his
later.
friend? Where's his friend?
I know, I know. Will we get more on that, or is that just like some weird, vague throwaway thing? I don't know.
We would.
We'll find out. I agree. I agree. I thought if we were going to, it would have been here, but it doesn't happen. So
We gotta eat Javi. That is the only actor who's actually a child.
yeah, another podcast specifically brought up Walt, and it was like, yeah, this is a Walt thing. Like he needed to get eaten because yeah, he was already growing too much.
Yeah.
Because it had only been 2 months, and it's like he looks way older than he did in the first season.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, yeah, get him off the island, and he can't get rescued like Walt did, right?
Right.
They don't have that option.
Right.
So yeah, that only leaves one other option.
Yep.
Basically. So yeah, I think it was pretty much a foregone conclusion.
We ate tall Javi.
Taller ghost Tommy.
Taller ghost Tommy.
Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah, it's like this leading from the shadows Misty thing. I think is kind of interesting, that
Yeah.
like she does seem to know at least implicitly that she can't really step up as the leader, but she does sort of take charge behind the scenes and like
Mhm.
chooses to run things. And that leads into the next scene. So
Machiavellian.
Machiavellian, if you will. So she goes downstairs and announces that Lottie is pleased with the wilderness's choice. Javi will save them. It's like this is where I'm like, you're Littlefinger now.
Yeah.
The realm is a lie. We tell ourselves so much that we forget it's a lie. I don't know. It just feels very much like chaos is a ladder, and she's climbing that ladder. Anyway, she then asks Shauna to go prepare the body. She doesn't actually say that, but that's the implication. I think she literally just says Shauna.
And
That's the line.
Shauna.
Yeah, it's clear that's the implication. So Shauna takes the knife, goes outside where Travis is still cradling the body. After an anguished look back, he relents and leaves Javi there. They prepare a surface to process the body, undressing him. Shauna struggles and covers her eyes before slicing Javi's throat, and the others leave as she does her Shauna butchery work. Um, and yeah, despite the fact that that's, you know, clearly not a fun job, that's not good enough to be leader.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so this is like, I mean, this
We need a
episode.
division of labor.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. It's like,
leader is not the butcher.
it's like, yeah, 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 yeah. But I also feel like there should be like an understudy. Like, you should show someone else how to do this so you don't have to literally do this every time. Like, what if something happens to you? What if you draw the card, right? Like, someone else needs to know how to do this.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, they should, if this were, I feel like this is maybe a little more Lord of the Flies, though it's been probably 30 years since I read it. So I could be wrong. But like identifying who has necessary skill.
When you read it when you were -5? Sorry, go ahead.
Womp womp.
We're all 25 here, am I right?
Yeah,
all right.
that's why we know all these early 90s
You know
songs.
when I started The Lost Lowdown when I was 10 years old?
I read about these songs in my history
What's up, guys? Oh my god, what's gonna happen to Locke? All right, anyways.
Yeah, identifying people who have important skill sets that they need on the island. I mean, in the
Yeah.
wilderness,
Yeah.
and those people don't have to draw.
Yeah, like
So,
Nat should train someone how to
Melissa,
hunt. Yeah,
Melissa,
yeah,
if you
yeah.
don't want to get eaten, show us that you can do something productive.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like Javi knows how to hunt, so I guess there's two at least that know how to do the hunting or know how to shoot really is the thing. But that's leads you to hunting. So like someone should they should have a backup for that too, even though two of them is better than one. But yeah, most urgently, Shauna should be like someone needs to come out here and learn how to do this because
Yeah, and Misty needs some understudies who can learn some of this first aid stuff
yes,
that she
100%. Misty too
knows.
should be training people. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and Akila can train people on how to like be a fucking miracle plastic surgeon in the woods.
yeah,
She did the
Akila.
best job ever.
I think you already said this, Akila as the Saeed of this show,
Yeah.
just like behind
Yeah.
the scenes, knowing how to do all this shit.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She is very much like a Saeed character. Yeah.
Um,
Totally. Yeah, those skills that, it's they just let one character be the one who knows and it's like that's not a good idea. And you should all know this by this point, like it's like in a way it's like the show knows who's going to survive. So it's like, well, we don't have to have Shauna
right.
training wells because we know she's going to make it. And it's like, but they don't know that.
They
Anyway,
don't know that.
all right. Are you ready to Okay, so go back to the present. Misty sneaks into Lottie's place and finds a prescription bottle, finally breaking into Lottie's chest thing and pulling out her phone. Just then, Walter enters the room and the phone rings. He's calling her, and since it rings, she's revealed,
It's
and
another plan.
he says he came to help.
That's another thing where we don't get to find out what her plan was because Walter just walks right in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I assumed she was gonna maybe call Walter.
Yeah, I mean that's my assumption.
Uh, but okay, so I have a question about the prescription bottle.
Or was she gonna call? Well, never. Anyway, had they already made the call to get somebody to come and? Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's what she was doing. She was getting the call because later she says like we told them it was an emergency.
Yeah, that happens
So
off
she was going
screen.
in there to get her phone to call a psych ward place.
Yeah, yeah, I
So
guess so.
that's what that was.
Yeah. Even though, well, okay. Anyway, whatever. Yeah.
It's just look up a phone number. She doesn't just have a. They don't have a a phone book sitting in the kitchen.
Oh,
You know,
right, right. To look up who to call. Yeah,
gotta
that makes sense. That makes sense. I was gonna say, why not just use the phone in the kitchen? But yeah, yeah. If she doesn't have the number, then yeah. Um, I just have a question about this prescription bottle. So is this like the first time I watched it, I thought, oh, Lottie does have a prescription. Maybe that means that some of the therapy was real, or at least like maybe the new therapist isn't real, but the old one was, and she just hallucinated this new therapist, you know. But then on a second watch, I was reconsidering and I was like, wait, is that the phenobarbital? Like, is that, what she put in the drinks? And is that what Misty puts in the syringe? Like, is that what's going on with the prescription bottle? Like, I kind of reconsidered the second time and I was like, maybe that doesn't mean what I thought it meant. Anyway, I'm not sure
yeah,
because we never actually see it again. So
yeah, that's a good point.
no telling.
Maybe someone on the internet has freeze framed it and looked for clues that is either a veterinary packaging or a
Hmm.
human medicine packaging.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because it just occurred to me like that's actually a perfectly viable alternative theory, because we have
Yeah,
a specific context that she has phenobarbital
yeah,
and used it recently.
yeah. She gets yeah.
So,
Yeah,
um,
and we know Misty gets it from somewhere.
and
So
Misty has it in a syringe later. We also don't see where she gets the syringe. So, it's
yeah,
weird. Like it's again, I feel like maybe they're trying to pull a surprise here because I think the syringe was confiscated when she entered the camp. That scene with the acolyte. Um, so she should have pulled it out with her phone. It should have been in that bowl, the syringe, but we don't actually see it. Anyway, she just has it later out of nowhere. So I feel like there's a missing piece. And now maybe she planned it with Walter off screen. I don't know. We don't see any more with Misty and Walter here. Like we don't see any more with Misty and Walter until the very end of the episode. So it's possible that they made some plans here or exchanged information at least. And there was clarity, but it just didn't happen for us. Anyway,
Yeah.
whatever. I thought it meant something, and then I realized I can't be sure. So now I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I
did
mean,
the therapy happen? Maybe we'll
I mean,
find out.
my assumption was that her original therapist at least was real.
Okay. I mean, I think that makes sense. It seems reasonable. It's just the conclusion of the therapy plot really calls it into question.
Yeah.
So, all right. Van tells Ty she doesn't like the plan to commit Lottie. They've all felt it in their own way. This is what I want to cast doubt on, but I'm going to talk about that later because there's a specific conversation about that later. Um, she thinks they can reach Lottie and handle it themselves as they swore they would, which is an implication of something that I don't think we quite saw on screen. Like that they made like an it type pact in the
Yeah.
past. Like we will we will handle problems ourselves forever. I don't know,
Well,
like
they got to really
for life.
flesh out that period of time surrounding the rescue.
Yeah.
And they,
Maybe that's when the swearing
I mean,
happens.
that's what I would
Yeah,
imagine,
yeah.
because yeah, it's,
We can't tell anyone what happened here. We have to like keep this to ourselves.
you're right,
Yeah.
right, and
Yeah, that makes
yeah.
sense.
But I mean, I guess I get Van's point here of like, we can't let her be committed because it's not in her head in that way. Like, if she just doesn't believe that therapy or whatever can help with it because it's an external force. Like the line earlier when Lottie's talking to the fake therapist and she's like, I'm not afraid that I'm sick again. I'm afraid that I never was sick.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
So if that's Van's opinion as well, then yeah, but I guess it is just going back to this pact.
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't,
Yeah.
again, it's like she doesn't have a plan.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We'll handle it ourselves, but like how? There is no how. It's just like, well, we can't call anyone else in, and dot dot dot. Like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's weird. It's weird. So then Nat burns the Queen of Spades as Shauna sharpens a knife, or maybe dulls a knife that does not cut her finger. We specifically see her test it, and it doesn't cut her finger. Though I'm sure if you stab someone with it, you could do some damage.
Yeah,
So
that's the thing. I'm like, why is this not, why are they showing us that this knife is not sharp?
it's a weird point. It's a weird point.
Because yeah, if you thrust that into somebody, you're gonna still,
Yeah,
yeah, really damage.
it's sharp enough to stab someone with, even if it's not sharp enough to
Yeah.
just cut your finger. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird shot. Maybe a listener has an interpretation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Help us out. Help us out. Especially because I mean we know Shauna's not committed to the plan, so it kind of makes sense, I guess, that she would dull the blade, like slightly reduce the risk. But yeah, I don't know. There's something weird about it.
Yeah, reducing the risk of hurting yourself with like an you could like, like thrust it or fling it in certain ways
Yeah,
that would be only superficially painful.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's like it
It's just,
reduces the minor risk, but not the major one.
right, right.
So
But
yeah,
I guess that is maybe, yeah.
it's a bit odd. Anyway, now it looks at the Queen of Hearts, and that's the end of that little sequence. Then we go over to Jeff and Callie. They're driving to Lottie's camp. I guess they decided to go there. That happened off screen. And they talk about disappearing. Um, so I guess like Callie's like, why don't we just disappear? I just have to assume this from context. Um, Callie asks for a solution, but Jeff has no idea what to do.
Yeah.
All right, at least someone's honest. Anyway, um, Jeff mentions Shauna having a gun, but he says he has it in a safe place, and Callie realizes it's in the glove compartment.
Immediately.
Now,
Realizes immediately.
again, I'm like shortcutting all this. They don't actually say any of this, but it's clear from implication and what happens later that that's what happened. So anyway, I just decided to cut to the chase. Like she gestures to the glove compartment, and Jeff stops her, and
Yeah.
we don't know for sure if the gun's in there or not. Like, yeah, the gun's in there. So they arrive at the camp. and some acolytes come out to greet them. Jeff backs out to find another way in, and they drive away. Just behind them, Kevin and Matt arrive at the camp entrance, and Matt waves at the acolytes. And the dialogue implies that they were following Jeff and Callie. Like, I don't think they saw us,
Yeah,
something like
you
that.
think they
So
saw
I think this is where we learned they really were following Jeff and Callie there.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's an interesting point. The other point that I thought was kind of funny is how like Jeff is like afraid of the acolytes when they like it's like if you knew they're not scary at all.
They're not.
They're like the gentlest. You could poke their bellies and they'll giggle. Like they're fine.
They
like,
are, yeah, but there is this sort of like a Children of the Corn thing.
it comes off like the others or something. It comes
Mhm.
off like they're ominous, like
Yeah.
ooh, scary purple people are coming to get you. And
Yeah.
it's just very much about perspective. Like he just doesn't know how to take this. And it's like the fact that they're dressed uniformly like makes them creepy. But because we have all this context, it's like of all the people there, these are the people you should probably fear the least. You should fear your own wife and the others way more.
Yes, the people, yeah, let's find a safer route to these people who are about to hunt one another.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I just thought it was a funny, weird
No, it's
like
funny.
no.
But it does read as creepy, them approaching
It does
somebody
read
like
as creepy, and
that.
that's how they wanted to read.
Yeah.
But like I couldn't really like I understood why it seemed that way, but to me I'm
Yeah,
just
it's fine.
thinking like, oh Jeff, just get
I
out.
mean, it's a joke. It's definitely played for comedy.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Nat goes to tell Lisa to leave before what happens tonight. She thanks Lisa for trying to teach her about forgiveness and says it's a nice idea. And this is clearly setting us up for where we're going this episode.
Yeah.
Something I did not appreciate the first time through.
Yeah, in hindsight, yeah.
It's both like Natalie's arc coming to a conclusion, at least the adult version,
Yeah.
and it's setting up for Lisa coming out at the end, right?
Yeah.
Because she realizes from this that like Natalie's like, basically telling her like shit's going down tonight, and she's like, oh, I'm not gonna leave. I'm gonna like prevent whatever bad thing is happening from happening.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it leads to at least to Natalie's death, basically.
Yeah.
So she's sealing her fate here. Because if she hadn't done this with Lisa, it's possible something different would have happened.
Something different would likely have happened. What? We will never know.
We will never know.
But yeah, it is clearly bookending the transgression of letting Javi die.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I think it's really well done. Really well done scene.
Yeah. The writing, it's very like there's some points here that are sort of vague because they have so many characters and they have a hard time tracking what each of them are thinking. But there are definitely a lot of points here that are very sharp.
Yeah.
And they really tell like a clear kind of story. Okay. So then we go back to the past. Ben arrives at the cabin to see Shauna chopping up Javi. He's horrified. Nat shows up behind him. He tells Nat about Javi's hiding place and says that they could survive the winter there. And she isn't like them. Nat says, actually, she's worse, and tells him what happened to Javi. Yeah, so, okay. She says he's a good person and he doesn't belong there. Well, after this episode, maybe he'll change your mind. Because yeah, he's got a little mass murder to attempt here.
Yeah, it's pretty extreme.
But yeah, I think this scene actually tells me that Nat is lying to Travis, because I think the way she admits it to Ben here shows that she doesn't really believe that like the wilderness chose and it isn't her fault. Like
she still feels culpable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's the right. I mean, maybe later on she starts lying to herself, when she's like super pleased to be the leader at the end, but like I feel like at this point she's still feeling guilty about it, which I think implies what was going on in the earlier scene. Okay, so this scene here with Ben seems to me like it's implying that Javi was alone down there. At least it implies that that's his interpretation of what was happening down there. That like that's a place where humans could survive, and the bones were what Javi was eating that whole time, which is kind of crazy. Just in the sense that he's like one fairly small child,
Yeah,
and
I know you think that. I don't think that. I think that there's a big animal in hibernation down there. I
we're gonna
seriously,
find out next season.
yeah, I mean, there's no way that that child ate and scattered all those bones, and they're all that old looking.
It's just how it comes across with the circle of stones, the bones in the middle, Ben trying to light a fire there, Ben saying we could survive. It just, at the very least, it seems like that's Ben's interpretation. Now, I'm not saying that means that that's definitely what's happening.
You're not going to convince me that a primo cave like that doesn't have some apex predators living in it. Like that's a perfect animal cave. Yeah, animals are not going to not live in that cave. That's a sick ass cave. If I was a baby bear, I'd be down there
Yeah,
rolling around,
yeah,
eating chipmunks,
yeah.
sharing half a chipmunk with some little kid that showed up and like scratched me
Javi,
behind my ears.
kiss them and scratch my ears.
Scratch my ears. Here's a squirrel for you.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
your friend.
Javi did say he had a friend, and so I
Yeah.
mean, it is
So
still
maybe
ambiguous
friends
what
can
that
be like
means.
in your head
Yeah,
here. But
but it is interesting that they don't specify that, and that Ben doesn't seem to have thought about it. So I don't know if that line is just a throwaway that's kind of going
it's a
nowhere.
throwaway that's going nowhere.
Okay, well, if they reveal an animal down there, then I will say it's not a throwaway, and I will assume that that's how he sort of interpreted the animal down there. But if there's no animal down there, then I will assume it was in his head and it's a throwaway. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see. Okay. So then Travis tells Van that she should be ashamed, but Van says she's glad she's alive, and he is too, and none of them should feel ashamed. She says, "Let your brother save you. Don't you owe him that? Don't you owe him that?" I was just like, really, really?
Yeah.
Oh, Javi, I'm gonna eat your heart for you.
I'm doing this for you, Javi.
Like what? I owe it to you, Javi. Like that's just such a bizarre way to frame it. But they do have to get. I mean, the thing is, we know Travis survives, right? How does he survive? I mean, in a way, like they have to get over this. They had to eat Javi because he was too young, and Travis has to survive. So they have to find a way for Javi to eat Travis. Like, there's basically that. It's like I feel like that's the corner they
The
painted
whole
themselves
thing
into.
is just so the whole thing, I just keep coming back to the conversation that happens off screen in which they discuss and eventually decide to agree to this card game thing. Like they didn't exempt Javi from drawing a card.
Yeah.
They didn't say, well, oh, he's too young and innocent, so he should be left out
Mm-hmm.
of this. It's like, no, we're
Yeah.
all going to draw a
The
card.
only one they left out was Lottie. And actually, part of my
And Ben,
interpretation, well, yeah, because Ben
because he's
wasn't
not
there,
there, but
but they
he's just
specifically
gone.
say it can't be Lottie. Like, that's what Ty says before they cut to drawing the cards. So they exclude Lottie from the start. So I assume she'll join later based on the adult stuff. So I don't think she's excluded forever. But just like that first time, you know, I was reading an article about the last episode that made a point that I thought was interesting, that that cut is sort of frustrating, which I do partially agree with. Like, in a way, it feels like that was a very pivotal moment in the past that they just brushed over.
Totally.
You know, what was the conversation
Yes,
between
yes.
we got to find another way and it can't be Lottie to we're going to draw these cards and whoever draws this Queen of Hearts
Yeah, and what? Yeah, yeah,
is
yes.
going to get eaten.
And
You
why
know,
not? And what do you mean? Do you mean it can't be eating Lottie, or you mean it can't be? We can't count on the return of Lottie's potential spiritual connection to the wilderness
I think
to
she
be the
meant
thing
we
that
can't eat Lottie because it's followed from Misty coming in
I
saying,
know that that is your interpretation, that but that is I have a different interpretation, which is that we can't sit around and wait for Lottie's magic to come back.
okay. I mean, you could take it that way. It's just there's an A to B in that scene, so it seems like it could be causation. That doesn't mean it has to be.
I know what you're saying, but I just of course it can be Lottie. Why not? Like,
Yeah,
of course you can eat Lottie.
it seemed my impression was that
Because otherwise you should say we need to do everything we can to keep Lottie alive because we need her for something other than meat.
yeah, so that was my interpretation that she was saying we can't eat Lottie because she's the spiritual leader. We cannot sacrifice her.
With that is that we don't see her doing anything to try to help get Lottie better.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
if that's really what she means, then we need to see her committing in some way to Lottie's well-being.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we just don't see that.
yeah, yeah. No, you're
So
right. You're right about that. It's true. It's true. Okay. Da, 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 da. Yeah, so I feel like maybe there's a line here between Van in the past and Van in the present. Like I'm glad I'm alive, so I don't feel guilty about anything. I don't know, like some kind of weird, like as long as I'm alive, anything is permissible. I don't know.
which is a really weird thing for somebody who knows they're about to die and is doing nothing to stay alive.
I agree, and I'm still stuck on that scene from 2 episodes ago where she was like, after like surviving all these extreme scenarios and putting all this meaning in what Lottie said, like telling Ty like I'm just not so sure anymore. I'm not feeling that this really means anything, and you know. And but then we get here, and it's just I don't know. It almost feels like that scene was misplaced, or I don't know. It just it never goes anywhere, and it just seems like a blip because this other stuff fits more with the earlier Van. Like I'm all in with the weirdness and whatever we have to do to survive, and giving that a meaning that we can live with.
Yeah.
So and that fits with what's happening here. So I don't know, but just because this is a scene with Van and Van's weird in the present, I want to make a connection. Anyway, I'm not sure if there is one.
Yeah.
Okay, are you ready for the next bit here? Okay, so we go back to the present. Walter sings as he prepares some hot cocoa. Kevin enters and reveals he is police. Walter acts impressed that he is a detective and tells Kevin about being a citizen detective. He offers Kevin some hot cocoa, asking Kevin why he is there. He says he's there for Shauna. Walter, so yeah, this also confirms that they followed them there because Shauna's there. Walter says she's not the only one there. Um, so implying like yeah, I don't know. It's implying that he's. I think they're misleading us about what his plans are. Of course, we don't know that the hot cocoa is poisoned.
Right.
So we'll find that out later. Okay, so Jeff and Callie enter the camp. Callie confronts Jeff about the blackmail, and he says, "You try making a living in sectionals."
Yeah. Because the American family structure is breaking down and
Yes,
nobody wants sectionals. I love that.
yeah, that's pretty much
Jeff.
what he
Jeff.
says. Callie moves Jeff out of a doorway as she sees Walter and Kevin talking. Jeff tells Callie to go find Shauna, and he will take care of this. Then he enters the kitchen. We hear Kevin and Walter discussing Jessica Roberts, a little foreshadowing for where we're going later. Walter says his methods are not admissible, and Kevin says, "You'd get along with my partner," also foreshadowing.
Womp womp.
Jeff makes himself known in the room. He confronts Kevin and asks Walter to leave. Jeff tells Kevin he killed Adam Martin in a crime of passion and asked to be arrested.
It's so
I know.
convincing.
It was me. I am a
I
murderer.
did the murder.
I do the murder. Yeah.
And I do it again.
Kevin is skeptical because he's not the dumbest cop that ever copped. And as Jeff explains, he falls over. And
And a great
Walter.
act of physical comedy. It must be really difficult to fall like that.
Yeah. I think they usually put something on the ground. It's usually a stunt performer that does those.
Mm.
Like pre-planned falls. Um they should always be pre-planned on a shoot. Anyway, I don't know why I said it like that. Um Walter re-enters and says it was phenobarbital from the bottle. Anyway, this is where I start having my
Misty
questions.
found it in a pill bottle, and
Yeah.
Lottie's, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, because they met right after she found it. So this is where I start like making
Yeah.
those connecting those dots. All right. He introduces himself to Jeff, implying that he already knows who Jeff is. Jeff is confused. Walter asks Jeff to help him move the body, and he finally does. And we'll pick up with that later. Um, in the past, Ben tries to light a fire in the cave with some stones, and it doesn't work. And we do see the circle of stones with the bones in it from the previous episode.
Reducing the mystery about why he wanted Nat to come with him because he's
Yeah. Do you know how to light a fire
I
also?
cannot light a fire with rocks.
I don't usually cook my meat,
I
but
saw it in a movie.
if you cook the meat, I will eat it.
I will also go on the record that I would not be able to start a fire with a couple of rocks
Yeah.
either.
Yeah, I've seen that that's possible, but yeah,
In
there's
movies.
no chance I would ever be able to do this. So anyway, we will pick up with that later, of course. Back at the cabin, the others sit and wait as Shauna enters with some Javi meat. Sorry, I had to say it that way. Um, she picks up the heart and looks at Travis, and everyone else looks at Travis. Like there's an unspoken assumption that, like, Travis, you have to eat this heart raw first because dot. It's like because you're his brother, and if we don't get your buy-in, then like we're gonna have to kill you, or you're never gonna survive, or we'll feel less guilty if you buy in. I'm not really sure. They don't say what's going on
Yeah,
here.
it makes it more of a ritual.
Yeah. So Travis puts Javi's little wolf figurine on the fireplace and takes the heart and takes a bite and throws it in the pan over the fire, and then they put the other Javi pieces in the fire in the pan as well. And they cook some Javi. Um yeah.
It's pretty
So
gross. Pretty heinous.
back uh sorry, upstairs, Lottie sits solemnly and Misty brings her some meat. Lottie thought it wanted what was best for them, but now she's not so sure. Misty says, "Your team needs you," and basically orders her to eat. And she does reluctantly. We know she survives, so again, much like Travis, gonna have to find a way to get over your guilt. And of course, it's probably easier for you than it is for Travis. So if Travis can eat his raw ass heart, then surely you can eat his cooked ass flank or whatever that was. What are flanks on a human? Anyway, party down, check it out. Okay. So let's see. Yeah. I think Lottie's guilt is an interesting arc that I'm really curious about as far as season 3 goes.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely full circle from like maximum suspicion and fear and so on at the end of season 1, where it was like, oh my God, Lottie is this terrifying quasi supernatural figure who is like into ritual sacrifice. And I remember the whole time, right? We were rewatching season 1, and I'm like, Lottie seems like a pretty nice person most of the time. I don't understand how it gets here, And it's like, and then again, we see more of that this season, and we see more doubt. And we see the adult Lottie also doubting. And she does get pushed into suggesting sacrifice at a certain point. So she does sort of get there, but it's interesting that they get there without her in the past. Like the initial thing doesn't have her participate, and she doesn't even approve of it. And I just think it's like they've like gone full reversal from what I thought that character was all about. And it's like now I understand like it's like no, the Lottie that we saw, that's who she is. She really is like that. It's really more that she's got some mental issues. She hallucinates sometimes. She gets carried away with that, and she wants to survive. But like ultimately, like she's not evil at all.
Right.
In a way, like she's got a
Right. Well, that's
stronger moral compass than a lot of them do.
yeah, that season 1 finale was very misleading. I mean, it was such a short snippet, but we right away we get an alternate explanation of the kidnapping
Yep.
that
Yep.
is a benevolent
It
one.
was to save Natalie,
And
not yeah.
and it doesn't take long before we discover that she didn't take that money from
Yep.
Travis, and she
Yep.
didn't kill
Right.
Travis. And
Yep.
yes, there was a disturbing story that she was involved in about that, but it wasn't she who did that. It was Travis's demons,
Yeah.
not literal demons, maybe literal demons.
Right. Right. But he did like basically kill himself.
Right.
Like that was true. Even though it seemed like the point at the end of season 1 was
Right.
that
He
wasn't true.
wasn't trying to kill himself. He was
Yeah.
trying to get close to
Right.
it.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, with the candles and the symbol, it's very disturbing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess you can't really, well, anyway. That yeah, that never mind. I was just gonna go off on that, but that is a different episode. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's some out there that are still skeptical of what happened with Travis, but I am not. I 100% believe
yeah, I'm not.
the story that we saw on screen, I think, is meant to be objective. I mean, there's one point in that scene where Lottie's narrating and Natalie says, "There's something you're not telling me," and that's when we see the vision of Laura Lee. I believe that she didn't admit that happened to Natalie, but I think that happened.
Yeah.
I don't think anything we saw didn't happen. It's a little. I think I think in retrospect, we'll see if they ever tell us anything about it again later. I feel like at this point, there's no way they're going back to that. But the only thing that was weird is the way like Travis is like barely off the ground when she turns around. And then when she turns back, he's like way like 10 feet off the ground like he was when they found him in season 1. And I think my interpretation now is that like the rationale of the scene, the way they played it, it didn't make sense for him to go up that high because his whole point was, I'm not trying to kill myself. You let me down once I pass out, basically.
Mhm.
And so like putting himself up high is like a huge risk for that. So you wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But like when it came to playing it and the way they wanted to show it, it's like, well, okay, but then we have to match. So it's just like they just cut to it like the way it was before, like, look, and this is how it happened. And I think they didn't want us to think too hard about like why did he go from down there to way up there? you know?
Yeah, and luckily only like two people who've ever watched the show know how that kind of equipment works.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
and since it
just
was
let it go kind of
designed
thing.
like for yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get anything further on that. I think we're supposed to accept that as truth,
Yeah,
especially because the show already knows when it's going to end.
yeah,
So, it's when shows don't know how long they're gonna last that they start to really get down to the weeds of deciding that something that they closed the book on was
yeah,
actually not.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Actually, no, it was this.
Mulder
But
sister disease.
oh my God. Yes. The X-Files was lousy with its problems. I love the X-Files, but holy shit. If it was made today, well, they rebooted it recently and the
That
reboot
doesn't
is the
count as if it's
worst
made today.
horse shit I have ever seen in my life. Fuck you, Chris Carter, for ruining my childhood.
Yeah,
Um
yeah,
anyway, but if it could have been, a 12 episode season 5 season kind of show that would have been freaking amazing.
yeah, 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 yeah,
But yeah, it just keeps going, and so they continue to go back to these same wells
yeah,
to do
yeah.
these continued storylines.
The
But
black oil,
anyway,
the eyeless people, like all that stuff, like kind of just. Speaking of, the
okay,
Octopus
so
guy
good.
really disappeared.
This guy disappeared. Yeah, and I saw him in the credits, as he is always in the credits. And I was thinking, when are we getting that fucker again?
Yeah.
And nothing about
Yeah,
it
they
this
showed him
season.
earlier in the season, but that was in the first half, like the
Yeah, a
creepier part of
long
the
time ago.
season.
Yeah,
Like the first half was definitely heavier on, and I remember Lost doing this too. Like it would be like more mystical and supernatural-ish in the first half, and then it would kind of transition to more practical, like normal. I mean, like not normal for the world, like stuff happening in the
yeah,
second half, where like they don't ramp up that creepiness as much, which I think is, I don't know,
yeah,
it's an interesting pattern at the very least. But it does mean that, yeah, I had a very different sense of what the season was about and where it was going back when they were showing the bad one following the eyeless guy. And like, it's like, that's just a thread that like is, there's no conclusion. Like, they find Javi and like, we don't really see anything with that ever again.
yeah,
So I don't
yeah.
know. I mean, Ty's still alive, so I mean, I don't think the bad one is gone. So I think they probably will pick it up later. But as much bad one as we were getting earlier in the season, I really thought maybe we'll actually like get a conclusion with that, but we did not.
We did not.
So it leaves it open. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. Are you ready for the next bit here? So we go back to the present. Lottie, adult Lottie, stands in a room. This was confusing to me. I didn't actually know what was happening in the scene. So Dan or anybody else who wants to explain this to me, Jacket Jockeys on Twitter, or Claude and Justin Patreon, or jacket jockeys at gmail.com. Please let me know what the fuck's going on in the scene. I'm going to do my best because I could not tell. There's no dialogue. Lottie stands in a room and walks to her chest. I think sees that it's been opened and smiles. I don't get it. I don't understand. What is she thinking? What is the point of the scene? I seriously have no idea, even though I've seen the whole episode twice. Um, Then we cut to Van watching Ty calling off the crisis team for Lottie. Um, okay, so anyway, since I have no idea what's going on, I can't really go anywhere with that. All right. So then Nat stands in the woods, and this is adult, and we see that she has a knife, and then we see the others gather around a fire. Ty and Van bring masks. Shauna asks Misty about the crisis team, and she says they'll be there soon. We told them it was urgent. Yeah, they
We,
called. They called.
yeah,
So yeah, I think you're probably right about the phone thing.
yeah. Of course I'm
Um,
right.
no, I mean, I just didn't realize it was sort of explicitly confirmed here. Um,
Yeah, because because there's the like, what do you mean
yeah, yeah,
we?
yeah.
And of course we don't get a fall. Nat never finds out that
No,
yeah,
that Walter's there.
Walter's
Yeah,
there.
it's true. Nat asks who's we. Lottie arrives with a knife, puts it down, and takes a deck of cards and says, "It's time." Um, Okay, Callie walks through the woods and hears a sound. She pulls out the gun. It's Matt. She hides the gun because it's a fucking cop. He says he's looking for Shauna. He asks her to keep her hands where he can see them, but then he gets a call and it's Walter playing a recording of Kevin from his phone. This is such a weird plan. Um, Matt says this isn't over and leaves, and so she doesn't actually have to reveal that she's holding a gun behind her back at this point. It's mainly just to tell us that she has the gun, I guess. Um, we see Jeff and Walter standing by a car trunk. Walter tosses the phone in. I mean, Kevin's in there. That's
We discover
um,
later.
yeah. I mean, we knew that they were going to move the
Yeah,
body and they're
this is
standing
where
here,
they.
so it
Yeah,
should be implied that they moved the body here. Walter tosses the phone in when Matt calls back, and they walk away, leaving the trunk closed. So I think this is Kevin and Matt's car. Uh, I got a little confused by this.
yeah, because he manages to get in. So
The plan is to frame um the all right, whatever. I'm gonna talk about that later because there's a few points here I'm a little confused about, but I can't go into it until we get to some of this stuff later. So I'll just pass over it for now. Okay. Um, Lottie shows the Queen of Hearts. Misty asks about the others being in bed, meaning the acolytes. And Lottie says they are. Lottie wants to shuffle the cards more. Ty tries to talk to Lottie and looks to Van for support, but she just tells Shauna, that's enough. That's enough shuffling, okay? Let's fucking sacrifice someone
Let's
because
get
that's
to
what I'm
it.
here for.
I'm hungry for the hunt.
Come on. I haven't eaten a human in like decades at this point. Shauna hands the deck back to Lottie. Van starts. It's not the queen. Ty asks Van if this is what she wanted. Um,
Yeah.
Lottie tells her if she refuses the draw, she knows what happens. Ty draws. Misty, Shauna, Nat, Lottie, all safe. So Lottie says, again. Van draws. She's safe. Quick cuts to the past.
Just, well, I guess the wilderness wanted us all to survive.
They really could have said that.
Like, how many times around, I guess you gotta go until
You
you run
keep
out of
going until,
cards.
yeah, someone's going to get it.
I hope that it's like divisible by the number of people there, or else it's not gonna
Some
be fair.
people get a higher chance. Yeah.
A
Actually,
teeny tiny bit
they
higher.
could do the math and figure out who has the highest chance based on where they start.
Yeah,
That's a math problem for you kids at
that's a
home.
math problem.
It's called modulo arithmetic. Do it, kids. All right. Anyway,
That sounds like something from Harry Potter.
yeah, it does. It is. It's arithmancy.
Modulo arithmancy.
The most
It
boring
turns
class in
anything into
Hogwarts that we never get to see.
yeah.
Um. Okay. Quick cuts to the past as you get a drawing montage. Finally, Shauna has the queen. The others go to the masks, put them on, and take a knife. Lottie says, "It's up to you. You can submit or run." Shauna says, "Time out. This isn't real, right? You know there's no it. It was just us." And Lottie says, "Is there a difference?"
What yeah, in probably the most perplexing line of the episode.
Fucking A.
Is there
Fucking
a
A. This was the Lindelof
difference?
moment for me where I was like, are you, what? What? Lottie said, what? Lottie said, what? This isn't, no, 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 no. You better think there's a difference, Lottie. Are you serious? If there's a difference, then call it off. What are you doing? Like, I'm sorry, if there's no difference, then cut it off. Like, there's no supernatural force, right? It's in you to decide not to do this, right? If
Yeah.
it's just you.
Yeah, it's the perfect especially for you because I know it really gets under your skin. Frustrating coda of a season of wait a minute, what does Lottie believe?
Yeah, 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 totally. Totally. It was like the most confusing thing they could have her say. Like
Yeah.
I like after what you said, my fear is that I'm not mentally ill. I'm not hallucinating. These things are really there. There is this force that wants us. We have that hallucination. You have to give it what it wants, and it's inside all of us. And but then it's like there's no difference. Like she meets Shauna's skepticism with like, yeah, I agree. That's why we should do it because we are it. That makes no sense. Shauna says "fuck off" and walks away as they chase her because it's like, yeah. I mean, seriously, like what? Anyway, yeah. This was. Oh man, yeah. I get why they thought that was an interesting line, but it makes it so hard to understand where Lottie's coming from here. Like it's such a short line that's like so difficult to. Oh my god. Anyway, I need to go back though to this earlier bit. This thing where Ty asked Van if this is what she wanted, right? So uh uh that's what in the hospital scene earlier in the season, when Ty is like she's like hallucinating, I guess, or dreaming standing up. I'm not sure if there's even a difference. And she sees Simone say, "Is this what you wanted?" you know
Ah,
um I feel like there's a parallel there,
interesting.
and in that case, and in this case, I think maybe this is the closest we get to a hint that like this is what Van wanted. Like that
Yeah.
we're supposed to think that, right?
Yeah.
There is no, she doesn't say no, You know,
Yeah.
like she does, you know, so I feel like we're supposed to believe like this is what Van wanted.
Yeah.
Why she wanted that, we can figure that out, I guess, if we try. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it stood out to me because it seemed like it was along similar lines. It's literally the same phrasing
Yeah.
that we saw earlier. So anyway, um, two other things I think are notable about this. Lottie says if she refuses to draw, she knows what happens. So it implies that, and we haven't seen this happen, but it implies that at some point in the past, they had a rule that if you refuse to draw, it's you.
It's
I
you.
think that's
Yeah.
the implication. You
Yeah.
know, you have to draw basically. Like if you draw,
I
at
feel like
least you have a
they
chance
gotta
to.
have they
Yeah,
gotta have that rule
yeah. Otherwise,
because
everyone's gonna be like, I refuse to
yeah, I'm
draw.
not gonna participate. Yeah.
And then the second thing was, uh, it's up to you. You can submit or run. So that implies that Pit Girl chose run,
Yeah.
basically. And you know, I get it, right? Like run gives you a chance, right? Run at least gives you the illusion of like maybe I get away, maybe I find Ben's cave. Wouldn't it be weird if there's this thing next season where like some of them get away and there's like two camps and one of them is in Ben's cave and or Javi's cave and like the rest of them are like wherever else like they're gonna
The rest of
fucking
them are on
live.
the beach.
Yeah, like I don't know where they're gonna live without the
Yeah.
cabin, but
It's yeah.
you know, like some kind of weird thing where like some of them get away and some of them are caught. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen.
fair enough, fair enough. But yeah, I just think like this kind of ties together what happened in the previous episode with Natalie, where the initial thing was like Shauna's gonna
Yeah.
slit her throat in the room, but
Yeah.
then like Travis, you know, tackles Shauna
Yeah.
and then she gets
Travis kind of
away,
makes it a
and it kind
choice.
of turns it into like it's kind of accidental that she runs. But this makes it clear that they formalize that later and make it where you get to choose now. It's you. Do you want to submit or do you want to run?
Yeah, run and hope that somebody else falls through a hole in the
Yeah.
ice.
Yeah. Maybe the wilderness, I'll choose somebody
Yeah.
else or, you know, whatever you want to bullshit about it, you know. Um, so yeah, yeah, I really I mean Shauna, you know, she goes over the line sometimes. I feel she's one of the most reasonable ones in this episode where I'm like, yeah, yeah, finally someone who's like speaking like a normal person in these scenes. Like,
Yeah.
you're not serious, right? Like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna fucking slit my throat now? Like, what? Why? You know, and also revealing, you know, there's no it. Like she doesn't believe it at all.
Right.
She's like, no, come on, come on. And I don't think Misty does either. And you know, this is where it gets a bit strange for me. Van seems like she wants to do it for whatever obscure reasons. Ty maybe is going along with Van, maybe. Lottie's all in. We already know that. But I feel like Misty and Shauna or Misty should not be all in on this because I don't think she ever committed. She still thought the team was coming, you know, and she just, you know,
Yeah.
finds out that they called it off.
Yeah, she always wants to be part of something, but she doesn't want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
She wants them to just be buddies, like
Yeah,
hanging
yeah.
out.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
she's sort of like, yeah, because because back then when we did that, it was because we were starving to death.
Right, right. The practical thing,
Right.
right? We did it because we had to.
Right.
We don't need to do this
Now we can
now.
just hang out
But
and
yet she participates in this as
right.
though she has no objection. I don't know. There's something missing there for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So then Matt arrives at the car and here's Kevin's phone. He opens the trunk and Walter appears, firing shots into the trunk. Walter gives Matt a choice. He implies, I'm gonna summarize here because it's delivered in a way that I don't want to repeat literally, but he implies that he planted evidence that Kevin is connected to Adam Martin and Jessica Roberts' murders. Which is like, how did that make any sense? But okay. He builds a sort of narrative for Matt to have uncovered this, becoming a hero. So I guess connecting the dots here as much as I can, the implication would be that like Matt figured out that Kevin was a double murderer and then they had some kind of confrontation and then Matt was forced to shoot him. I feel like that's what we're supposed to believe.
Yeah.
from this. Um, and Walter threatens to implicate Matt if he doesn't agree.
Right.
So basically, I'll say, no, actually, you were the one who was the murderer, and you killed Ket. Like that's his
Yeah.
alternative plan. You can go along with this, or you can be the one to go down.
Yeah.
We hear sirens as Walter leaves Matt to decide,
It's
and we all know what
incredible.
he's gonna decide.
Yeah, right, because he's such a fucking worm.
Yeah, I feel
No
like
offense to worms.
setting up like Matt's like sleaziness earlier in the season is sort of, and the line from earlier, like he break, he goes up, he does stuff that's not admissible,
Right.
it's like it's setting us up to believe that he's gonna go along with this plan out of self-interest,
Hmm.
even though you know he did that stuff seemingly because he really wanted to find out who killed Adam Martin, and he was 100% right about what he thought happened. So I don't know. I heard this point made in another podcast. Like he's an asshole, but he definitely wasn't wrong in
Right.
terms of his theories. His methods were definitely questionable and over the line.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just interesting to me that he's willing to let drop what he knows really happened for his own self-interest.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, "No, I'll tell them you killed him." And
Why would they believe
why would they? Yeah, the
you?
same thing
Yeah.
called Callie, basically.
Right.
Like they're not gonna believe you. You know,
Right.
like so. Anyway, I just think
But this is his chance to be regarded as a hero.
it's true. It's true. And deep down, Matt wants to be a hero. That's never been established in the show. But
No,
okay.
no, not a hero, but famous. He wants to be like, you know, prestigious or something.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Not that he actually wants to be a hero because he's just a sleaze.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. So it just I don't know. That's
He wants the ego boost.
this feels very tidy to me. Like they want to like put to bed these like murder cases, and this is the way they
this is the
choose
way to do it. Otherwise, we're going to be dealing with this for the entire next season.
Yeah, yeah. Like they don't want to go into next season with like more of this stuff. So we kill Kevin because Kevin's the decent one who wouldn't go along with this stuff.
Right.
And so we'll have like sleazy Matt left on the side, and maybe what I could see happening is like Misty and Walter like call in Matt for some favors now that he's under their thumb.
Ah.
I could totally see that happening.
Yeah.
As a connection with the police, because they're like citizen detectives, and he could give them access to stuff, and that's something I see.
I don't know that the next season is gonna be the Misty and Walter crime fighting side project, but
Not crime fighting. I would think it would be relevant to something in the plot.
yeah, I mean, I think the conclusion of this episode really makes one wonder what the next season is going to be about.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to speculate.
But yeah,
At least like part of something they could do. Like I don't know what the actual plot would be, but like at some point Missy's like, we need blah blah blah. Oh no, the police have it or whatever.
Right.
Well, call up your friend Matt, and like I feel like that I could see that happening.
Could happen.
If it happens, I said it. All right. So Jeff hides as the others chase Shauna. We hear a gunshot. Oh my god. Callie shoots Lottie in the shoulder. Lottie says, she's so powerful. It's here. It's with us now. Shauna asks about the psych team, but Ty and Van admit that they called it off. Van says, referring to Lottie for the record, because there's a lot of people here, she's like this because of us. And Lottie said, listen, what do we hear? That's where we conclude the scene.
Right. So falling back to that, or calling back to the scenes earlier in this season when she's got the circle of people.
The morning meditation circle that like if that's all they did, it really would have been fine.
It would have been fine.
That was basically like the wilderness version of what they're doing in the camp, like pretty harmless therapeutic stuff that like shouldn't ever cause anyone to murder anyone. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Bit Bob. Okay. So then we go back to the past. Lottie comes in the living room and is greeted by her acolytes in the past. Just for the record.
Pastolites.
Of course, I mean like Mari and Gin and Melissa and so on. Later, Akila asks Van to tell her the plot of a movie, but she offers a new tale. Once upon a time, there was a place called the Wilderness. It built a house. I guess she's like telling a story of the cabin. It's kind of weird. Like when I saw it again, I'm like, oh, this is foreshadowing that the cabin's gonna burn. Like we're sort of like mystifying the origin of this cabin as it is about to come to an end. Like as like some place that was built for us, you know. Um, as she tells the story, we hear Ben or we see Ben outside grabbing some matches. Lottie interrupts Van's story to say she never wanted to be in charge. She was the only one who knew how to listen, but she can't hear it anymore because it doesn't need her anymore. They all learned how to hear it. She suggests a leader to help them survive the rest of the time, which is not her. And she says, the wilderness chose who fed us and who should lead us. And that's Natalie, apparently. So this is where it isn't 100% for sure because they don't do a coronation or whatever. But this is where it seems like they're suggesting that actually Natalie's going to be the Antler Queen and not Lottie. um she at least is crowned the leader, and
She
it
is,
seemed like the Antler
yes.
Queen was the leader,
She has
so
assumed leadership for the time
unless
being.
power changes
But
hands.
it's an interesting thing in putting this scene into dialogue with the earlier scene where it seems like Misty's like your team needs you, your team needs you. Is this like Lottie stepping, does Lottie really believe that Nat is a better leader, is the destined leader instead of her? Where she's like, I don't want to be in
Yes,
charge of
yes,
this.
yes. I For me the latter.
Yeah.
I take this as so I think this first part, like she never wanted to be in charge and she can't hear it anymore. I think all that's pretty sincere. I take it on the level. Now this last part, the wilderness shows who to fed it. We already know she doesn't believe that. She
Yeah.
indicated that earlier with Misty, you know. So and who should lead us? I don't think I think she just doesn't want to be in charge of this shit. And so she's like, let me give this to someone else. And like, here's a flimsy rationale that like I know my followers will believe, you know, and I could transfer them over. And they do. It's like it's almost like the Godfather, like and they're gonna like line up and kiss the ring, you know,
Yeah.
like you're the new Godfather now, and we will all pledge our loyalty to you.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
like that's the implication. So yeah, I think it's just like I want out. I don't think she really believes this shit about like the wilderness chose Natalie. I really don't. And I know Natalie don't believe it either. So it's crazy that like the rationale is built on a lie, but it goes back to storytelling. You see.
Indeed.
But yeah, I think this is an interesting moment. And yeah, the whole idea of like I mean, this is the explicit reference to storytelling, and we see Ben with the matches. So this is setting the stage for what's going to happen later with the cabin. So very, 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 very pivotal scene. um, okay, so in the present, Lottie says, "You believe me now? It's still with us." She says, "It was there when Shauna killed Adam, when Misty had Jessica Roberts and Van in her eyes just a minute ago." Seems like that's what she says. Like, okay, that's not really on the same level, but all right. And Ty, it brought her to the bad one, so the bad one could bring her there. She doesn't phrase it like that. And Nat, it was there when she tried to kill herself, I guess. It's implied by the editing. They cut to that at the moment. So I think that's what they mean. She doesn't quite say that. Um, and she says Natalie was always its favorite, which is kind of a funny contrast because it does come across like she believes it here. Whereas I don't feel like she believes it in the past. So I don't know. It feels inconsistent. Or maybe she changed her mind. I'm not sure. But then there's the what's the difference? So I don't know. I don't know what Lonnie believes. It's very confusing. Um, I just have to say, because this is the point I wanted to make earlier. Shauna never bought into it. She made it very clear here. They did cut to past Shauna when she stabbed Adam in season one. I do feel like it triggered something like the feeling of threat and the stabbing, and she did make a connection with the past. but I don't think for a second she believes that that was some supernatural force. It was
No,
more like PTSD,
more like
you
PTSD.
know? Like she had this flashback and like responded like instinctively with violence, but
Yeah.
like I don't think she believes this at all. So I just think like that's I don't know. And I also don't think Misty believes that that had anything to do with kidnapping Jessica Roberts. She thought Jessica Roberts was the blackmailer. It was again Misty's pragmatic. That is her core trait. She does what needs to be done, and sometimes because the world they're in, that's something murderous or extreme like kidnapping. But like or disposing of bodies, but like she doesn't think there's a supernatural force making her do it like at all. So she
Right.
doesn't believe it either. So anyway, just going down the line. Now Van had a look in her eye, and like I think Van's the only one where it's like kind of valid. you know? Now Ty with the bad one and the connection, like Ty's bad one thing is probably the most like
Yeah,
extreme,
I mean, there's
like
something going on there.
yeah, there's definitely something going on there, and the ties thing is so strange. It really is hard to read that as something normal. So I'm tentatively willing to let that one go. It did basically lead her there. So what did it want? I don't know. It never showed up. So
Right.
that's left ambiguous. And then yeah, Natalie's always his favorite. Yeah, we talked about that. Like, really? I don't know. Anyway, Nat says, "Can't you ever stop?" And lunges for Lottie. As so, Nat's not buying in either, which makes sense. Um, and lunges for Lottie as Lisa emerges from the woods with a gun. Okay, setting the stage for the final confrontation here. Okay, back to the past. Lottie says, "How else do we explain what happened? It wouldn't let Nat die." I'm so lost here, because I don't even think she believes this. But I bet they're gonna cut to this later, like it's real.
But
Anyway,
again, it's like, is she lying to herself or is she lying to
yeah,
her?
she could be lying to herself. She bows and kisses Nat's hand. Ben watches through the window. The others do the same, mostly just bowing. Misty does a pretty hilarious bow here. You should check it out. It's like a curtsy with a full arm
Theatrical.
extension.
Yeah.
Anyway, like she's like half serious, which kind of makes sense. Okay, Melissa takes off her fucking hat.
Who knew? I always assumed that that hat was connected to the wig.
They bought a special extra wig to
Got
put
it.
on top of the
Got
hat
it.
wig.
Well, that makes sense. They need multiple wigs.
Yeah. And Ben continues to watch. Nat seems reluctant but pleased. Travis goes, then Shauna, Nat smiles. Yeah, this is an interesting moment where like Nat seems like happy about it. And I find that turn also a bit baffling.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just this adolescence thing of, approval, affirmation. Is there
Yeah, yeah.
really.
Yeah, I guess so.
But yeah,
Like
I would not want to be in charge of this.
after the horror of letting Javi die, like, well, at least they all respect me
It
now.
like me.
I don't
It
know.
means something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I always wanted to be a leader. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird ass moment. This
Yeah.
episode is filled with weird ass moments.
Yeah.
I don't get it, but anyway, there we go. Um, Okay. In the present, Lisa confronts Natalie, asking if she killed people. Lisa points the gun at Nat and tells her to drop the knife. It's weird because she was lunging for Lottie. I guess that's the point. She's trying to protect
She's
Lottie.
protecting Lottie.
Okay, sorry, I lost the thread there. Okay, because she's the leader. Misty pulls out a syringe while Lisa's not looking. Nat puts her hands up and drops the knife. Misty lunges, but Lisa dodges, and Misty stabs Natalie with the syringe and immediately regrets it. Then we cut to Natalie on a plane. We see back to the real world. We see Natalie collapse in slow motion as Misty cradles and the others watch. Misty says it's too late. Javi says, "Oh, back on the plane." Javi says, "There's nothing to be afraid of." Nat says she's not supposed to be there. Young Nat says, "We both know that's not true." Young Lottie says, "It's not evil, just hungry, like us. Just let it in." She does, as we see Nat die in the real world. All right. Woo.
Yeah. It's a pretty powerful scene. Yet another one of those powerful scenes that when
That
described
I
in
just
your
charged
deadpan, yeah.
through. Yeah. Yeah, they
But
like
if
these
you
like
watch it,
death hallucination
yeah.
scenes. Like we've gotten a
Yeah.
few of these.
Yes.
It's yeah. I mean, Natalie's a big character to kill off. Of course, the way the show works, like they killed off Juliette Lewis, not actually Natalie. She
Right.
is gonna survive the wilderness, so that
Right.
the
We'll
younger
still be
version will
younger.
still be in the show 100%. And I am certain that they will get Juliette Lewis back for some hallucinations next season.
Yeah.
I have zero doubt that we'll see her again next season. If we don't see her next season, I will eat my wig hat.
Wig fat, yes. Yeah, yeah. It's a great scene. It brings us full circle, the forgiveness theme,
Yep,
and she essentially um saves Lisa in this. Um
yep. Sort of a
in a way.
redemption
It's
for
her, yeah,
letting
it's her
Lottie
redemption
die.
for letting
Yeah,
Javi die. Yeah.
yeah. Um, right, right. That's the point. Nat pushes Lisa out of
Nat
the way.
pushes,
It's
yeah,
not. It's
Nat
not that
saves
Lisa
Lisa.
dodges. I mean, she effectively dodged, but it's because she was pushed out of the way.
Right.
That's actually an important point. I should have clarified that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes. So yeah, it's sort of a redemption. Like we see, like probably
Right. Like you can't maybe forgiveness doesn't exist, but redemption can.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we see like probably one of the worst things that we've seen Natalie do in the previous episode, and then yeah, they don't want to let her die on that note.
Hmm.
So, but it is momentous. I mean, this is a main character. I thought, Van, Walter, Kevin, who does actually die, were characters who could die. I really did, or even Jeff. But I did not think that they were going to kill off one of the core group from season one. So I'm surprised that she almost killed herself at the end of season one and goes through this whole thing with Lottie's camp and kind of comes out the other side believing in it more than Lottie does, and yeah, only to die like this. I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy. I didn't expect it at all. So my jaw was on the floor when this was going on. Because I just, yeah, I don't know. Um, but yeah, I think the other thing that I just want to note about this is this interesting line of Lottie saying it's not evil, just hungry like us,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
meaning death.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
like death is hungry. Like that's just I don't know. It's just such a weird metaphor. I don't know. Anyway, I or yeah,
Yeah.
simile. I don't know. Anyway, I just find that odd. And I just wanted to note that. Okay, okay. Voiceover of cops saying Natalie died of a drug overdose. This is the story they're going to
Right.
tell, apparently. Very consistent with her life, not
Yeah.
presently, but in the past.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's gonna
Um,
go right over.
they take the body away as Misty watches. We see Matt, and we also see Lottie being led away. Walter finds Misty and says he's taking care of the Adam Martin situation. She breaks down and says she killed her best friend. I think only you thought that, but it's still very touching. Um,
Yeah, yeah, Nat's not around to contradict or roll her eyes.
Jeff reunites with Shauna and Callie. Matt looks pained talking to another cop. Jeff tells Shauna it's going to be okay. Shauna says Natalie is dead. Back to Lottie being taken away. Ty says they will keep her for a while, but they'll check on her. Lottie, meaning. Lottie says, we gave it what it wanted. It is pleased with us. and
Yeah.
I and I hit my forehead. You didn't believe that Javi was a sacrifice the wilderness demanded, and you should eat him, but you do believe that Natalie was supposed to die here, and that's what the wilderness wanted. Again, like I'm just fucking Lottie. Oh my god, Lottie. All right. Oh my god. All right. Anyway, she looks at Van and says, "You'll see."
Yeah.
The ambulance
Cancer's
drives
going away.
away.
Cancer's going away. It's my prediction.
Since Van survived this season, I think there's a good chance that you're right about that. And that would be a very lost thing, too. To have her cancer go away and imply it has something to do with this when it could have just been a fluke.
Hmm.
Like, all right. Anyway, fucking Lottie. All right.
Fucking Lottie.
All right. Back to the past. Shauna writes in her diary for the first time this season, how could it not have been me? I used to think it was Jackie who made me feel invisible, but she doesn't quite finish the sentence
Yeah.
as she notices smoke! The cabin is burning! The burning!
Oh my god! It's a
Fire!
fire!
Sale.
Sale.
She Arrested Development, everybody. She rushes to grab stuff and tells the others to wake up. Downstairs, the fire's blazing outside. They try to go out the door, but it won't open. Ty knocks it open with an axe. The others grab what they can and go out the hole that Ty makes in the door. They all gather outside and watch the cabin burn. We see it collapse some, and we zoom out over the woods as we end season 2 with the cabin boiling.
Yeah, a giant column of smoke that no one's gonna notice. No one, if you're like 40 miles from Denver and you're wherever, Vancouver, I don't know, you just look over and you see this giant column of smoke.
Yeah, if anyone is remotely in the area,
Yeah.
you're right that should.
Yeah.
But we know that's not how
So
they get rescued
it's gone.
because
We're
they can't
done.
be anywhere near their rescue at this point.
Right,
So.
right. But it's just like it's just this classic move. Lost did this.
Yep.
It's like they're done
They
with
literally
the
burned the
set.
cabin on
They
Lost.
burned the cabin. Done with this set. We're not going to see it again.
Yeah.
Um,
Strangely, I thought the cabin was home base for the rest of the show, but I did think back to that first scene and they don't show the cabin.
Yeah.
Where they're like cooking and stuff. So I think actually it makes sense that they had to abandon the cabin at a certain point, you know? So.
Yeah, but it's going to definitely incentivize them to find this
The cave where Ben
where
is.
Ben
Yeah,
is.
totally agree.
Ben, their next meal.
Ben's days are numbered, certainly. And the fact that he not only burned down the cabin, but also like blocked the door so they couldn't get out. Like
Yeah.
that's I don't know, Ben. I don't know. Are you better than them? I don't know. That's a lot.
Yeah, I think we can all agree now they're all terrible people.
Yeah, I mean, it's really over the line. I get why, he felt pushed to that extreme after what he saw. Like, I get the story they're telling, but I do think like if they wanted to keep him redeemable, they shouldn't have had him do this. And
Yeah,
I
I don't
think
think there was anybody in the Donner Party who like tried to set fire to
Yeah.
everybody else.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like this is finally definitively setting the stage for him to die,
Yeah.
and for it to seem less bad, because
Yeah.
it's like you tried to kill all of us,
Yeah, leading up to this, it would have been really sad.
Yeah, yeah, it kind of changes the game
Um,
on what it means.
yeah.
But it does also point the way towards more with Ben in the future. So I'm hoping we get a reveal of the animal or whatever the fuck is down there in that cave. And if they move into the cave, obviously we can see more of it. I think it's logical since that is the only other shelter established on the show that they could possibly survive a winter in. So, and he literally says that in this episode. So, I think this is pointing the way towards some season 3 plots. But yeah, I don't mind being done with the cabin. I think, it's kind of nice to like move into a different phase because the cabin was a little routine at this point, as a location.
Sure,
It was sort of safe and easy. And yeah, it made at least the shelter part of their survival like kind of a moot point. So it was just about food. And so I think like it's definitely a step in a more desperate direction to have them not have shelter either.
Yeah.
So in the middle of winter, like in this terrifying environment. So anyway,
ratchets things up.
I think this is a good move, and in multiple ways, for the characters and for the show. So I look forward to seeing where this is going. I don't know. Any final thoughts?
I'm going to need to gather my thoughts to come up with any predictions for next season because they closed the book on so much with this finale.
They did.
But I guess I'm really interested to see more on these intervening years.
Yeah. I think though we never saw the post rescue stuff again.
No, I really expected to see more.
Only in the first episode.
So we'll see what they got in store for us next.
I do feel like going forward we should get more of that.
Yeah.
But as for next season, I've already made my predictions. Misty and Walter are going to call Matt at some point. Van's cancer should be gone. I mean, that was your thing, but I agree with it. I think we should get more about the bad one, and the eyeless man. And I think we'll be done with Adam Martin and Jessica Roberts finally.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think what else. I mean, obviously the Ben thing, cave, all of that has to be
Yeah.
addressed. So I think we'll get something about that. I also, the other thing I wanted to say is like it's retcon, I think, but there was some lines in season one um where like they were sitting in the van and they implied that we wouldn't be here if it weren't for Natalie. I feel like they can kind of recontextualize that line as they're referring to her leadership, now that we know she actually was sort of coronated as the leader.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that in. But yeah, plenty of room to speculate. Feel free to speculate in the comments.
Yeah.
Let us know, what you think. I'm curious. And we'll be back someday when this writer strike gets resolved and season 3 appears. We should come back and resume the jacket jockey experience for all of you.
Extravaganza.
It will be
Extravagance.
extravagance.
Yeah, well, for the next year and a half or so, I
Hang
guess,
in there, everybody.
yeah, and
If something comes up that's worth talking about, we'll talk about it. But until then, Claude and Justin, Patreon. There's more stuff. We talk about other random stuff, other TV shows, whatever. And hey, we'll see you on the next one. Until then,
buzz.
buzz, buzz, buzz.